Welcome to day number 2, Tuesday on the AM show. And you know how we do it. It's a pleasure hosting you. My name is Benjamin Akakwa. I do this together with Bernice Abubeidu Lanza. Thank you for staying. Now, coming up this morning, the news, and right after that, Executive Director, Parliamentary Network Africa, Samuel Bing, is our guest as we slice and dice the newspapers. And right after that, our major story for today, our big stories, right? Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta will deliver the mid-year budget review. Now, he was slated to have delivered it today, then it was pushed to Thursday, and now it was brought back to today and has been pushed back to the end of the month, next Monday. So we expected an update on government and how it has handled its finances up to this point to give us a projection of what the next couple of months will look like till the end of the year. We'll be bringing you the scoop on that with the guests who join us this morning. Dr. Eric Bwachi-Adam, he's a senior lecturer, Faculty of Accounting and Finance at the UPSA. Dr. Michael Ayanga, he's an economist with the UDS. And Eric Amponsah-Boateng, economist and tax consultant. That's what we're having on our chopping board. But we've also heard about your worries about the new look on our website, myjoyonline.com. Today, we'll explain the new interface to you and guide you through how you can make the most out of this new look. And of course, we always offer you the opportunity of getting interactive with us. So stay and let's know what your thoughts are. On that note, the news up next. Well, let's get into our first story now on the AM News. And we begin our build-up to the governing New Patriotic Party's August 26 Superdelegates Conference. And former General Secretary of the party, Kwabena Ejei-Agyapong, says the party stands a better chance of winning the 2024 polls if it presents a fresh face. Now, he will be on the ballot with 9 others, and he believes he stands tall and has worked hard to earn the enviable slot of flag bearer of the governing party. Joseph Akable of our political desk now reports.
Kwabena Ejei-Agyapong is not new to the MPP flag bearer race. He was part of 17 aspirants who sought to lead the party into the 2008 polls.
We, the MPP, are the tradition that believes in creating a world of plenty. We must all be determined to make this country that shining example that all Africans were proud to say is on this our continent.
He only managed 9 votes, representing 0.4% of the votes cast. His membership of the party goes as far back as its early days, when he played an active role in the campaign of presidential candidates Albert Edubwahi and John Ajakum Kufuor in 1992 and 1996.
I humbly submit, I, Kwabena Ejei-Agyapong, offer the hope of a fresh start for Ghana. It is a matter of public record that I've always availed myself to this tradition. More importantly, for example, in the run-up to the 1992 election, under the Rawlings dictatorship, when it was life-risking to be associated with the MPP. I'm not a newcomer. I did not join our great tradition midstream after the danger abated. I have served this party right from the get-go and in many capacities. I was there when it mattered most, and also when the party was at the peak of its glory. I gathered valuable experience doing so, sitting at the feet of some of the revered leaders of our tradition, the likes of the Venerable B.J. Darocha, Stephen Kweku, Peter Alajete, Albert Edubwahi, T.D. Brodiments, R.R. Amponsah, Kwame Donkofojo, Alhaji Bin Sali, Roland Al-Hassan, Johnny Selby.
When the party won power in 2000, he became President John Ajakum Kufuor's press secretary. This journey has not always been smooth. Despite successfully winning the party's general secretary position in 2014, he was later suspended. This suspension has since been set aside and is back seeking to lead again. He believes the MPP needs a new face.
Our party, the MPP, cannot afford to put forward those who led us to this state. I want to repeat myself. Our party, the MPP, therefore, cannot afford to put forward those who led us to this state and expect Ghanaians to embrace them during the 2024 election. We need a new face, a pair of clean hands, a leader to reconnect with our base and earn the trust of Ghanaians.
Mr. Japan is promising a lean and all-inclusive government if given the nod.
To send a strong signal. It's not about the quantum of money you save by downsizing the government, but the moral message you send to the Ghanaian people that you are serious about what you're doing. Cut down the government pecs. In Ghana right now, it appears people enjoy government pecs more than the work that they are supposed to do.
The 61-year-old engineer and former sports broadcaster will be back on the ballot on August 26 when the Super Delegates Conference takes place.
May God help us all, and may God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you very much for your attention.
Still on the political terrain, former President John Dramani Mahama says the socio-economic development policies introduced by the late John Evans Atta Mills are unmatched. He was speaking at the wreath-laying event in memory of the late President John Evans Atta Mills. There's more in this report put together by Jacqueline Ansomayaboa.
On this day, 11 years ago, he established a shocking precedent in Ghanaian history by becoming the first president to die in the highest seat of power. President John Evans Atta Mills' death as an icon of peace, unifier, and outstanding sportsman went recorded in history as one of the country's worst days. Speaking at the 11th anniversary of the late president, former President John Dramani Mahama said that the late John Evans Atta Mills' socio-economic development initiatives is unmatched by any government.
Professor Mills was the epitome of selflessness, always seeking the welfare of others, even at the expense of his own well-being and comfort. He was a champion of social justice. His dedication to public service was unwavering, and his commitment to lifting Ghana to the next level is unmatched. He had a single-minded belief in the pursuit of those ideals and values he stood for. In the hands of the current MPP government, we find ourselves in the throes of economic crisis, severe hardship, suffering, maladministration, corruption, nepotism, insensitivity, and arrogance. Here lies a man who governed this country with humility and sensitivity and superintended our economy with great skill. He made the right calls on the economy, and it was no surprise that under his stewardship, Ghana famously recorded its highest ever GDP growth rate of 14.4%, with a larger contribution of this growth coming from the rail sector rather than oil. He still holds the record for the longest ever sustained period of single-digit inflation. In his day, almost all key economic indices were pointing in the right direction, as compared to the current disarray into which we have been plunged. As his chair of the economic management team, I can attest to his sterling leadership that led to these achievements.
General Secretary of the National Democratic Party, Fifi Fiavikwete, is calling on the members of the party to emulate the good deeds of the late president.
And this party can only be grateful. But I think the greatest testament we as a party can give to the memory of this great servant leader is to have millions of us who will rise to seek to emulate who he was. The breadth and depth of his knowledge, but much more than that, the expansiveness of his humanity, his humility, the love of nation, the love of people. And if this party can have millions of people who would epitomize that, this party will continue to be a shining light to the country.
Family and National Democratic Party members were present for the wreath-laying ceremony. For Joy News, Jacqueline Ansumaya.
In our next story, the General Secretary of the Public Sector Workers Union of the Trade Union Congress, Bernard Ajay, is worried about the continuous attack on leaders of the various labor unions. He wants members to direct their frustrations at government. Now, he notes that the mismanagement of the country's economy by the government has worsened the plight of Ghanaian workers. Rafiq Salam has the rest of the story.
The 11th Upper West Regional Delegates Conference of the Public Sector Workers Union of the Trade Union Congress gives members the opportunity to discuss and review the activities of the union, measure their performance in the region, and also look at the challenges with a view to finding solutions to them. It is also to elect regional officers who will man the affairs of the union in the region for the next 4 years, and also develop plans for the upcoming National Quadrennial Delegates Conference slated for December. General Secretary of the Public Sector Workers Union, Brother Bernard Ajay, noted that the inefficient and mismanagement of the country's economy has further worsened the plight of workers. To add insult to injury, they are now being deprived of allowances that they used to earn as workers by the government. Brother Bernard Ajay was unhappy that workers, instead of directing their anger on government for the economic woes they are wallowing in, have rather shifted the blame on the leadership of the unions. He called for unity among members of the union, stating it is the only way they can overcome the challenges they are facing.
This has also affected our salaries or our conditions of service. It has affected our purchasing power, that the prices of goods and services keep skyrocketing, but the salaries and wages we take home are not commensurate with the increases and difficulties brought on by the economy. The end result is that we are suffering as workers. Is that not it? Yes. Very much suffering. In addition to that, some allowances that we have that comes to support the salaries or wages we take home. And government is using all sorts of strategies and means to deprive us either of having the opportunity to negotiate these allowances or denying us these allowances where we have negotiated these allowances. I know that it has made most of us become so angry to the extent that instead of directing that anger to the appropriate courtesies, sometimes we end up attacking ourselves and blaming the union of even not doing what they have to do. The situation we find ourselves requires that as unions, we remain strong and more united than ever in solidarity. We are entitled to live and work without discrimination or exploitation.
Upper West Regional Chairman of the Public Sector Workers Union of the Trade Union Congress, Said Mohammed Nuruddin, enumerated some successes chalked the past 4 years.
The PSW fund has really brought very big relief to its members, especially with the members in the Upper West region. Since the inception of the loan scheme, 31 members in the region benefited from the fund, with accumulated payout of 456,000 Ghana cedis under my leadership.
There were also some solidarity messages from sister unions.
I would like to urge my brothers and sisters that the only weapon that the leaders that are with us are afraid of is one and only one, and that is unity. Brothers and sisters, in the song we always sing, our strength as unions resides in unity.
Reporting for News, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
Now, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission says the continuous stealing of cables and meters is affecting the delivery of utility services in the Keta and Ayanga districts. The PURC is worried about how this is impeding the smooth operations and revenue generation of the Ghana Water Company Limited and the Electricity Company of Ghana. Volta Regional Manager Philip Agbezudo made this known at a media engagement on the regulatory body's operations in the first half of 2023.
There are some districts that are fond of destroying these poles. For instance, Central Tonu, Ketu North, Ketu South. Most at times, ECG lost a lot of their poles. Now, another disturbing issue is the cable theft in Keta and Ayanga districts. In those areas, you will be surprised that in the night, you will think that power has gone off and not me, somebody has cut the copper cable from ECG lines. And it's something that sometimes when people call or complainers call to complain that they don't have electricity, and before you realize it was as a result of the fact that somebody has climbed the post and cut the table. It's becoming a thorn on the flesh of ECG. And then the influx of foreign meters, when you go to Ketu North, especially Jojo area, you will realize that a lot of foreign meters are being installed by individuals. And ECG, for instance, some of the meter readers have little knowledge about how they read those meters. And because of that, ECG may not be able to capture it. And it's something that is worrying the sector. And as a result of our intervention too, about 30 poles were replaced. And then 8 meters were also replaced for customers who Lord complained about 40 meters. 2 transformers replaced, and over 400 complaints were resolved, and our customers were happy. Customers are now abreast with the rights and responsibilities as a result of our education that we have been doing in our villages and towns. And then ECG's increased revenue mobilization, as I already said, that PURC laid a strong foundation by distributing the airline portion that talks about the need to pay your bills within 14 days.
In our next story, the Jospon Group of companies has commissioned a medical waste treatment plant in Akrofu in the whole municipality of the Volta region. The facility is equipped with machinery capable of treating 10,000 kilograms of medical waste daily while ensuring that pollutants are not released into the atmosphere. It is one of 14 being constructed across the country in collaboration with government to address the improper and unhygienic disposal of medical waste.
Medical waste management had been identified as one of the greatest challenges in the country's health sector. While some health facilities employed the use of incinerators, which are cost-effective, others had no choice but to dispose of medical waste at landfill sites, among others. This act led to the pollution of the air, soil, and water bodies, contributing to the outbreak of diseases.
The lack of proper sorting and proper disposal of these products can create a whole lot of problems, sense of health and other things. And COVID gave us an understanding of the importance of this kind of process. It is therefore proper to dispose waste effectively and correctly.
To ensure the safe and hygienic disposal of medical waste, the Jospon Group of companies, in partnership with the government, constructed a medical waste treatment facility at Akrofu in the whole municipality of the Volta region. The medical waste plant would help to properly dispose of syringes, blood-stained materials, pathological, COVID-19 and immunization waste.
The installation of an ultra-modern microwave treatment equipment supplied by Ecosferil, our partners from Belgium, on site, allow us to treat an average of 10,000 kilograms of hazardous waste daily. That is 10 tons of waste, medical waste, daily. The equipment has the added advantage of recycling the treated waste, adding more value and reducing the waste that goes into landfills. Moreover, its non-incineration technique ensures no harmful pollutants are released into the atmosphere.
The Volta Regional Minister, Dr. Archibald Lecha, said the initiative aims at helping Ghana attain the Sustainable Development Goals and enumerated its benefits.
Permit me to outline some of the benefits our region stands to gain aside employment generation. This includes 1. Reduction in the mixture of hazardous waste and general waste in health facilities. 2. Avoidance of the illegal reuse of certain components of medical waste such as syringes, needles, and other plastics. 3. Reduction in the exposure of sorters, scavengers, and unsuspecting people on landfills to infectious waste. And 4. Minimization of hospital infection in patients and healthcare workers.
The Deputy Minister of Health, Alhaji Mahama Asay Sieni, called for proper maintenance of the facility to prolong its lifespan. Operations of the medical waste treatment plant would create over 200 direct and indirect jobs, serve as a practical center for students in the health and sanitation sectors. Fred Kwame Asari, Joy News, Akrofu.
Now, the cycle of poverty can be broken when people have access to information, and the only way to get information is through reading and understanding. The chief executive of Perby Cubs, a reading club, Anyele Perby, is calling for a concerted effort to break this vicious cycle. There is more in this report.
A UNESCO report in 2021 revealed that about 6% of pupils at public basic schools cannot read nor comprehend a text. This worrying reality is what Chief Executive Officer of Perby Cubs wants to fix with her Carnival Festival. She has dedicated her professional career to visiting schools to read and write with pupils in public schools. The Joy News team caught up with her reading caravan at Dansoman B cluster of schools. Mrs. Anyele Perby told Joy News her objective is to encourage reading since it is the only way one can break the cycle of poverty.
If we can get children even from very poor backgrounds to learn to read and learn to read, we are giving them a significant key that can enable them to escape the cycle of poverty they may find themselves in. So this year, as Accra celebrates UNESCO Accra World Book Capital, it's a wonderful privilege for us to bring this fun reading campaign, Carnival, to Accra. Carnival is from two words, Kane, the Ghana word which means read, and Carnival, a traveling fanfare, excitement, and all that. And the goal of Carnival is to show that reading is success, and everyone should read.
The brand influencer for Perby Cubs, Ajete Anan, also stressed on the need for pupils to cultivate the habit of reading. He also called on parents and guardians to come on board to help the kids read.
In this day and age, there's so much that distracts them. And, sometimes I was even telling a few friends of mine that when I post something on my social media handles and with all the details, and young people will come into my page and ask, where is the venue? Meanwhile, the details are on the posters. It tells you that we're having the culture of reading. We have not cultivated, or it's dying, or even some say it has even died. And so we need to reactivate that, because reading is the gateway skill to all learning. And if we don't have that at our foundation, then our hope in terms of what these children we're hoping them to be in the future is very, very doomed. And so we're trying to do that, and it's all hands on deck thing. It's not just encouraging these young people to read, but even what we do behind the scenes as parents and guardians. Sometimes we tend to unconsciously make reading punishment, some form of punishment, and when the children get to know that it's a punishment, they won't cultivate that natural habit of reading. And so we must find ways and means of encouraging them so that they don't see that as a punishment, and we all have to get involved, basically.
Meanwhile, school support officer of the Dansoman Circuit, Madam Felicia Muzu, commended Perby Cubs for choosing their district
and Dansoman B cluster schools in particular, and called on others to emulate the gesture.
They are not enough. We wish to have more. Like Oliver Twist, who always want to ask for more. So if you have philanthropists, individuals who want to assist us to donate books to our library, we will be very grateful.
And that is the note on which we cap off the news. But stay with us as we are joined by Executive Director, Parliamentary Network Africa, Samuel Bing, for the news review. Up next. Well, thank you very much for staying with us on the AM show. And now we get into the newspapers. This morning we have the Daily Graphic, the Daily Guide, the Finder newspaper, Economy Times as well. And we'll be getting into them together with Executive Director, Parliamentary Network Africa, Sammy Obeng. But before I go to Mr. Obeng, my guest for the morning, this segment is brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Now, your health is your wealth. And if you're a man, if you have prostate issues, they could really mess you up. You want to be checking on your prostate. If you're a woman, fertility is crucial to you, especially in our part of the world where you understand what I mean. So if you have concerns about any of these issues, you should make tracks to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, because guess what? They're offering you prostate screening for free if you're a man. And if you're a woman, fertility screening also gratis for free. Here's where you can locate them. They can be found here in Accra at Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. There's also Kumasi, Kronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrade Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama in Zama. The numbers, you can reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease, but only the commencement of the news review. Mr. Obeng, a very good morning to you. Hello, Sammy Obeng. All right. His feed has a bit of a problem, connectivity issues. I shall commence, and when we have Sammy Obeng, I'll rope him in. But I'd like to find out from you. There's been a lot of talk about two major matters. I want to find out what your thoughts are on them. Shoot them to us via the live stream. One, Cecilia Abnadapa and everything that has happened with her and in between. No judgment, because we do not know what the facts of the matter are. Now, there's been talk about some funeral and donations that could have been made. There's also been talk on the other end about how she could have accumulated such wealth. There's been talk about her husband, who is an architect of long standing, and there's been talk about she herself and the work she does. But per her salary and everything else that we know, could she have made those sums of money? A lot to discourse on, but you out there, what do you think? What is your take on this matter? And then again, the budget statement or the mid-year budget review, we've expected it. There's been a lot of back and forth. We expected it today, then it was pushed to Thursday, the 27th. It was brought back yesterday as of sometime around midday, back to today. And now we're hearing it's coming to us next week, Monday, at the close of the month. How confident are you in our economic system, our financial system, and everything that is happening? Two questions for you this morning. You can shoot me a message, and I'll be sure to read it. Just season your messages. Mr. Obeng, a very good morning to you. Let's try this one more time. Can you hear me? Sammy Obeng, can you hear me? And if you can, please unmute. All right. So we'll start with the news review and get Sammy Obeng aboard. The Daily Graphic is where we start. OSP grills Cecilia Dapa. I always, when I find this word grill, whichever person is involved, I don't know why I think of tilapia. But anyway, I don't know why we're also so fond of using a grill. I mean, we could question. It's okay. OSP grills Cecilia Dapa. Media budget review, collaborate for quick economic rebound. Uforiata to private sector. Hey, Uncle Ken. Okay. Auditor General recovers unearned salaries, 11.52 million Ghana cedis so far retrieved as disallowances. Pictured there, the man who deputized and took over from Daniel Yao Domelevo, Johnson Ekwamwa Esiedu, Auditor General. Of course, he has come under a lot of flack himself for failing to toe the same line that his erstwhile boss did. NCA engages stakeholders on digital audio broadcasting. On the back page, Cocoa Abrabopa pays 9.2 million Ghana cedis to cocoa farmers. And then GRNMA inaugurates 10th Secretariat in the Upper East region. Mr. Obeng, let me try this one more time before I get into the daily graphic. Can you hear me?
Hey, Benjamin. Good morning.
It's good to have you. Thank you for joining the conversation. I threw this out to my guests. I'm throwing it out to you as well. Number one, Cecilia Dapa, what do you make of all the happenings so far? Number two, the media budget review and the delays. What do you make of them? And number three, maybe, there is this post on Facebook, Joy News on Facebook. And this morning we ask, have you lost hope in Ghana? Or have you found hope again in Ghana? What are your reflections? Quick ones and we get into the papers.
Maybe I start from the last one, whether I've lost hope in Ghana or found hope in Ghana. I mean, it is easy to, feel a sense of despair and probably feel like losing hope in all the things that goes on in our country many times. But that's all we've got. Ghana is all we've got, and we cannot afford to lose hope in it. Losing hope is throwing our hands in despair and allowing whatever it is that is making us lose hope take over and destroy the country we love so much. So we cannot lose hope. We just have to continuously motivate ourselves, encourage ourselves to still keep the torch burning. And indeed, those who perhaps give us reason to want to lose hope in our country, to put their feet to the fire so that we can salvage our country from whatever situation that gets us wanting to lose hope, whether it is people who are wrecking the nation, it's people who are doing illegal business, whether it's people who are destroying our environment, or perhaps people of the political class who are not, serving as they are supposed to serve. Now, certainly the issue regarding Madam Cecilia Dapa is very, very worrying. And like you rightly indicated, the facts of the matter are not all, clear now, but it is important that the necessary agencies are looking into it. It is important that, civil society organizations that are focused on anti-corruption and those of you in the media and all Ghanaians are speaking about it. It is important that, we are condemning, the very fact that in a time like this, when Ghana is grappling with so many economic situations, we can have, people in our country who are hoarding money. It is important that we are recognizing that this is not an isolated situation. There may be many, many more instances of that in the homes of many other people. And perhaps this may serve as the turnaround moment that may have us, having a good conversation about this matter and ensuring that people who perhaps are telling us to do are preaching to us in a different way, but practicing something completely different, will be held to accountability. Media review, well, we look forward to it coming up. Would have wished that in a critical moment like this, it would have been earlier, but certainly better late than never.
Better late than never. Let's get into the papers then. And so starting with the story about the Auditor General who has recovered unearned salaries to the tune of 11.52 million Ghana cedis. A special account at the Bank of Ghana belonging to the Auditor General to receive disallowed unearned salaries and allowances has accrued more than 11.52 million Ghana cedis as at the end of last month. Of the amount, 10 million Ghana cedis from the account known as the Auditor General's Recoveries Account, set up in June last year, has been transferred into the consolidated fund. Now, the money is part of expenditure disallowances with regard to unearned salaries and other recoveries reported to Parliament through different Auditors General reports. Now, the Auditor General Johnson Ekwamwa-Asiedu, who made this known to the Daily Graphic in an exclusive interview in Accra, stated that the specialized account was established purposely to safeguard the public purse by tracking in real time the progress of recoveries made through expenditure disallowances. Now, until June last year, the Auditor General's recommendations for recoveries of unearned salaries had always been directed into the Controller and Accountant General's suspense accounts, that is the CACSA. However, the CACSA could not provide real-time information on those recoveries, making the effort of enforcing the rules on surcharging and disallowances to appear to be yielding less than positive results. And so that is what he said. This explained the new account that was created. Sami, so this Auditor General has got a lot of flack, especially on the back of the circumstances in which his boss was ousted and he took over, and he was seen not to be following the trend of Daniel Yao Domelevo. Does this encourage you concerning the work of Johnson Ekwamwa-Asiedu, the Auditor General? Hello, Sami. All right, the connection is still poor. Maybe we'll try to reach him on phone so we can have a fluid conversation. Let's head now to page 13. Two major stories there that I'd like to take a quick look at. On page 12, though, there is COVID-19 vaccination coverage in Volta region, the lowest. I thought I should highlight that as well. Our brothers and sisters in the Volta region. Now, the Volta region has the lowest number of people fully vaccinated against COVID-19 in Ghana. As of June 6 this year, only 402,163 people out of the 1,387,537 targeted population were fully jabbed against the virus. Now, the fully vaccinated people constitute only 40.6% of the targeted population. So we're encouraging you to go out and get your vaccines. I have taken both shots. I have taken 2 booster shots, and I am fit as a fiddle. So just go get your shot and don't succumb to any myths, or what do they even call those ones? The term just escapes me. Those naysayers, conspiracy theorists, that's what I'm looking for. Conspiracy theorists, yeah? There are so many conspiracies going around, but your health is paramount, so focus on that. So now on page 13, Media Budget Review, collaborate for quick economic rebound, Ofori-Atta to private sector. And the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, has assured the business community that the economy is bouncing back and called for its collaboration to make that happen within the shortest possible time. Let me just pause here. Uncle Ken, we understand. In your position, you have to be optimistic. We are optimistic with you, though these are very pessimistic times. We could easily slip down that slope into pessimism. We're refusing that. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not put the cart before the horse. A lot of the time, you have sounded too optimistic that it has sounded more like fabrication than reality, okay? So let's face our reality while we add, dollops, garnishing of optimism. It works. But when you sound more optimistic than even the forecasts per the World Bank, the IMF, your own forecasts, that's where we have a bit of a problem, because then it appears you're merely throwing dust into the eyes of people. But anyway, he stated that the country was gradually coming out of its economic challenges, which resulted from the COVID-19 pandemic. Wow, how COVID-19 has been flogged, huh? And was finding its way back on track, a feat that would have a positive impact on the private sector. The finance minister was speaking at a meeting with the business community in Accra yesterday ahead of the mid-year budget review to solicit their inputs to revise this year's budget. And again, Mr. Ofori-Atta, the back and forth, the go and come on the back of this mid-year budget review. I know the speaker made mention of the fact that you can't push it too far because of the recess for Parliament and enough time to do the work that has to be done, especially if, for example, you choose to introduce new taxes, which, by the way, some have said is not even something you should be contemplating. But this back and forth doesn't speak well. I mean, it's going to come off today. It's not going to come off. It's coming back on today. Now it's going to the end of the month. Just get it sorted, yeah? And keep us from sitting on pins and needles. And again, it doesn't work much for the generality of the population and for the media when you keep shifting the goalposts. Today it is today, tomorrow it is the day after today. Anyway, and when we hosted in that business roundtable engagement, the business community, the AGI, GUTA, the Chamber of Commerce, etc., the rhetoric you're spewing here is not what they were spewing. So maybe, Mr. Finance Minister, you should be jaw-jawing more with that community. OSP grills Cecilia Dapa, and the Office of the Special Prosecutor yesterday arrested and interrogated the immediate past Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources, Cecilia Dapa, over, quote, suspected corruption and corruption-related offences regarding large amounts of money and other valuable items reportedly stolen from her residence. We can talk about the $1 million, 300,000 euros, a large sum of Ghana cedis and other valuable items allegedly stolen from her house by her house helps. Now, a statement signed by the special prosecutor, Kisia Jabing, said the former minister was arrested yesterday at exactly 11:55 a.m. and, quote, questioned by authorized officers of the OSP. Now, later in the day, operatives of the Office of the Special Prosecutor visited the home of the former minister as part of the investigative process. I'm sure many of you have followed the story. There's no need to do overkill on that story. There's also ECOWAS meeting, the middle spread of the Daily Graphic newspaper. ECOWAS meeting on trafficking in persons underway in Accra. NDC commemorates 11th anniversary of former President Atta Mills. African countries must come up with sustainable energy plans. Professor Dampare said so. Let me see whether I can catch a brief glimpse of anything on the international front. So yes, there are 19 to contest Gabon presidential election, 19 of them. And then Nigerian ex-governor's lawyer to pay $36 million. A London court on Monday ordered an ex-lawyer of former Nigerian state governor James Ibori to pay around $36 million for helping hide funds gained illegally. Ibori's former lawyer, Badresh Gohil, was convicted in 2010 of 13 counts of money laundering and other offenses linked to his role in helping Ibori. He who has ears, let him hear. Ghanaians, you know, when these issues come up, whether it's the 260 or 250K that supposedly a presidential staffer had somewhere, whatever, that issue is still up in the air, or Cecilia Dapa's issue. I'm sure, like someone sent me a message yesterday, if we went into the houses of many of these members of parliament, ministers, past and present, and maybe even the current leadership and the past leadership, I'm talking about the executive at the very top, it would be staggering. Maybe we wouldn't even have had need to go to the IMF with the sort of money that the political elite, politically exposed people wield in this country. And I'm sure if we wanted to do an analysis, conduct an analysis, and find out how they came by such sums of money in Kabeya Fekeke in this country, you would have people running helter-skelter like headless chickens. And yet we keep talking about the ordinary taxpayer and heaping on taxes, tax upon tax. Mr. President, if you're watching this morning, or if any member of your executive is watching, I want to ask, why do we still have the COVID-19 levy? What is it doing there? Especially when the WHO has said that this pandemic, literally, not virtually, literally, is over. It's lingering. It's something that we must keep, just like the flu in like the UK and other places, we must keep trying to forestall. But why do we still have the COVID-19 levy? Why is your administration still taxing sanitary products and determining them to be a luxury? Why? Anyway. There's also Russia can replace Ukraine grain to Africa. That's according to Putin. Okay, Mr. Putin, I guess I could smile Sovietly on that one. Whether Africa will be receiving that with open arms, there is another question. And it's interesting that Putin never made it for that event in South Africa. Any fear in there? I don't know. The Daily Guide newspaper, our lead NPP to make history. That's according to Dr. Mahmoud Baumia. NPP flag bearers received delegates album Wednesday. Cecilia Dapa arrested over $1 million cash scandal. Economy expected to show positive stabilization signs. And NDC marks Atta Mills passing. I'll lead NPP to make history. Haven't you made that already, Dr. Vice President? I don't know which history you're referring to. Let's get into page 3. So, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has expressed optimism that he will lead the NPP to win the 2024 elections and make history as the only political party to win 3 consecutive elections in the Fourth Republic. Interacting with delegates of the ruling party and other supporters of the NPP in the Takoradi constituency, Dr. Bawumia remarked, "It is possible to break the 8." He therefore rejected claims that the NPP had no message to convince the electorate going into the 2024 general election. But I'm just asking though, humor me. What is the message of the NPP? Are they going to sell to us free SHS one more time? Digitalization, your babies are going to get the Ghana card. Agriculture, 1 village, 1 dam, 1 district, 1 factory. A buoyant economy. Corruption being tackled. Well, I don't know. But we could ask the same question for the NDC too. What exactly are they offering? I'm just saying, ladies and gentlemen, Ghana 4, especially for those who may be turning 18 ahead of 2024, read between the lines. I know we don't read that much in this country, but read between the lines, figuratively, before you vote, because the direction of this country and the youth and what I keep seeing, oh my word. Anyway, that is that. NPP flag bearers received delegates album Wednesday. There's also Cecilia Dapa arrested. That story there as well. I've already read the story about the economy, so I think I will just move away from that. On the international front, heat wave to spread east across huge parts of the United States. Nigeria oil tanker blast kills 8, and about 8 people have been confirmed dead after a fuel tanker exploded in Nigeria's southwest Ondo state. Residents had been scooping up spilled fuel from the tanker, which was involved in a road accident on Sunday night, as state police said. There's also Algeria wildfires, 15 killed and thousands evacuated. That's the story there. Samuel Bing, can you hear me now?
Benjamin, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. My apologies for keeping you in the dark. I didn't know you were out there in the light. Any thoughts on some of the matters? That is, if you've heard anything. If not, I can reiterate.
Oh, well, I think I had
any thoughts on any of the matters I've raised so far?
First of all, it's quite interesting your state of despondency this morning. It's not unusual to have many Ghanaians feeling the way you're feeling about many of the issues going on in our country, and it is worrying when people will have to come to that particular state. And you are right about how, in a situation we find ourselves now, even a date on matters relating to media review, seems to be tossed here and there. It's now becoming even an issue of, when Parliament wants it done versus when the executive wants it done, especially with a Parliament that has just a few days to rise, high expectations on the media review and what it must contain and what it must, the kind of relief or the kind of, relief basically that it must bring to the business community, the international community, the people of Ghana and what have you. So it is worrying to be hearing these kinds of things. And we just hope that, Parliament will stick to the schedule for this week and we would have the media review bit, going through. While it goes through, we know that, yes, per the IMF arrangement, the government will certainly have to raise a lot of revenue to be able to bridge the gap between its revenue and expenditure. But, just like the business community have said, government should be listening, to industry players. We're having too many instances where a government policy is rolled out, a government announcement is made, and you find industry players within the space. Sometimes agriculture, you find the peasant farmers, you find farmers association. Sometimes energy, you find the organizations within the energy sector. Sometimes finance and economy, you find the people within the space saying we were not consulted enough. Our views were not taken into consideration enough. And these things are quite worrying because, you need everybody to come on board to be able to deliver on these things. You spoke also about the Auditor General and the recent announcement, that had been made. For me, we want to see more of these, but also we want to see them being showcased in a way that brings back the confidence in that institution that a few years ago, people had so much confidence, in an institution that will not only, announce the things that have gone wrong in various ministries, departments, and agencies, but one that is taking steps to surcharge, to recover, to disallow, and what have you, according to the powers that is God, in the laws that we have. I think that's the issue relating to Madam Siyadapa, like you said, it's been spoken about, extensively, and I would not want to go into that any longer, except to say that, like you cited the example of some previous instances where we're told about some people within the presidential staff space, who had lots of cash, and yet, it looked like the issue died a natural death.
Right.
We certainly would be seen as a country that is, joking, really, if in such a crisis situation we allow such a story also to die a natural death.
Well, I did ask for your comments, and for those of you on social media, Musa Abattoir says, President Akufo-Addo has already cleared Cecilia Dapa, so what is the special prosecutor worrying himself about? At least Martin Amidu had told the world that you cannot conduct a proper investigation under the president. That's how you feel. Hudu Abubakar Sadiq says, good morning, Ben. Watching you live from Idra, Sechedumasi in the Ashanti region. My take on this, Madam Dapa's issue, is that the president should stay out of it for the OSP to do his work. Just to wrap, Samuel Bing, and it's unfortunate that today we couldn't have enough time with you on the back of the internet challenges, but banks record 51.4% growth in half-year profit. It's not all doom and gloom. There are some positives, though, of course, we know where they're coming from. But the banking sector's profitability improved in the first half of 2023 as banks' profit after tax stood at 4.3 billion, up from 2.8 billion Ghana cedis. This represents a 51.4% increment. But my concern, Bank of Ghana increases policy rate to 30%. And you know what that could mean for the lending rate. Though, in fact, the Finder newspaper adds that banks record 4.3 billion profit in first half of 2023, while average lending rates fall to 31.5%. I hope they keep falling. Yeah, if you're on a facility, you will understand what I mean. But to wrap, public debt stands at 569.3 billion Ghana cedis. Government cautioned against relying on treasury bills for long-term development financing, and government records 1.8% deficit for first 5 months of 2023. Final word, Sammy, and we're out.
Yeah, on the banks recording first half, profit, I think the devil will be in the detail, really.
Right.
If we drill deep down, we'll realize that, if, for example, in the prior year you made so much losses, and so the bottom line was very low, in the new year and things are peaking, certainly you would find a number showing some highs, but does the highs represent the real state of situation? We know how our banking industry or sector has been brought to almost an all-time low, and I think that together with the new rates, announced by the Bank of Ghana, we all need to be, concerned about, our economy, how to get businesses back, how to get the banking industry hope back in it, and all of that. And we need to be speaking about these things even as we go forward, so that things can get better. Those who need to work also need to work hard for the people of Ghana who have reposed our confidence in them.
Samuel Bing, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And my apologies that we couldn't do more on the back of the challenges. I wish you the best of the day, sir. Samuel Bing is Executive Director, Parliamentary Network, Africa. He joined us for the news review. A few requests you've sent me right before we acknowledge Endpoint Homeopathic and go to sports. This one says, good morning, Multimedia, the champion station. Kindly wish Joyce Tete, a.k.a. Dede, who lives at Abekan National Health Insurance and works with Snappy Co. North Industrial Area, a happy 36th birthday. That message coming through from George Daniel. Happy birthday to you, Joyce Tete, a.k.a. Dede. This one also says, help me extend our appreciation to Mr. Amwako Ofori Isaac, the director of Ike City Limited, entrepreneur and philanthropist, for the recognition done the 1st Infantry Battalion for his extraordinary contribution and exemplary support to the Ghana Armed Forces. That's from Kwame Apia Kubi. To you, Mr. Amwako Ofori Isaac. And finally, from your dear husband, Overseer Kwabena Akrofi of Asempa FM, Mrs. Florence Amma Akrofi. A very happy birthday to you. And if you're celebrating your birthday today, happy birthday to you as well. This segment brought to you always by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering free prostate screening if you're a man, free fertility screening if you're a woman. Locate them here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrade Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanso and Esiama and Zima. You can call them on 0244-867-068 or 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Bringing us to the start of sports. And yesterday, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi told me, what is this you're saying about Messi? Who says I'm going to be talking about him? Well, today he has a lot in store for you. Just stay. That is up next.
Good morning. Let's do sports now. On the AM show with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. Kumasi Asante Kotoko continue to dominate the airways here in the country following their decision to reappoint Dr. Prosper Nate Ogum as the head coach of the team. Prosper Nate Ogum won the Ghana Premier League for the Porcupine Warriors for the first time in about 8 seasons, but resigned in July last year. Well, the leadership of the club has decided to reappoint him to steer the technical affairs of the team, and former Black Stars defender John Pencil has thrown his weight behind him to succeed. He also says it is important that the leadership of the Porcupine Warriors gives him the maximum support to secure the results supporters are seeking for.
I think Ogun is doing so well. He started from Wafa. We all saw what he did. Came to Kotoko. He won the league, and he built a very good structure over there with his players. Also with his philosophy and his understanding of the game, I think the supporters were behind him, the players were behind him. That's why I always said never close doors, because he left the door open for him that he can come in anytime. So now the time has come for him to come again. You know, he has a history with the club, very good one, but repeating history sometimes is difficult. But I think he's the coach with his words, which he believes in his ability. And we all know that when it comes to coaching, he's doing very, very well. And I have full confidence that, no coach will go for a job that is not ready for. I believe Coach Ogum is ready to go for the tasks that are ahead, because he knew Kotoko is Kotoko. Kotoko is a demanding club. So when you're going, you prepare, which he has that zeal to go and pick up that word. So as a coach, I wish him all the best, and then I believe he can do it well. But like I said, he's an example to a lot of coaches, a lot of people, that you always leave the door open. So when you go, the door will open for you to come back again.
Now, the bit as well about what creates a solid environment for a coach to work. You have been on various legs of you've operated on various arms of the football value chain. You have operated from the ownership level, and you've played and you've managed as well. From where you sit, what would you want to see the ownership of the club do for this man so that he can get the job done like he's always known to do?
Yeah, I think first they have to allow him to do, if the club Kotoko has their own DNA or their own philosophy as a system in place, then the coach need to go by that rules, and then also system in place. Then they should allow him to pick the players that will fit his own system, his own philosophy to build a team, because he being the head coach, he becomes a manager. So he manages the team, and he buy players that he think they are good to play for such a team. Protocol is not a team that you can pick any player to play. You need players who have a great attitude, who take responsibilities on the field to make things work. So they should do whatever they can to make the coach happy and give him everything that he needs so that he can have his peace to work. Because We've seen him doing it before, but if he's happy and he's getting all the necessary arrangement, all the equipment he needs, all the players he needs to start, I think everything will go well with them. So they should give him maximum respect and respect his office as well.
John Pencil there, speaking to my colleague Nathaniel Atta on Joy Sports Link last Saturday. To great Olympics, in the latter part of the Ghana Premier League last season, the Dade Boys decided to move their home venue to the Wafa Park in Sogakope. But this year, they intend to move their venue to Teshi, where McDan constructed a new AstroTurf. We understand that former MP of the area, Okoboy, engaged McDan to construct the facility for the people of the area. Now, Great Olympics is considering using that as their home venue in the new Ghana Premier League season, expected to start in the middle of September. We hear from Okoboy, who's been speaking to my colleague, Nathaniel Atta.
I just cannot describe my excitement. Some few years ago, I happened to watch a football match at the McDan Stadium at La, and I was very impressed with what I saw. And so I asked a friend, who did this? And I was told that it's Dr. Macaulay, the McDan Foundation. I'm like, so what about Lejokuku? What about Teshi? So I started exploring ways to get to Dr. Macaulay. It was a struggle in the beginning, but I happened to know Coleman, the CEO of Wembley Sports Complex. So Coleman told me, look, I'll take you to McDan. So I happened to meet McDan, and I told him, look, Senior, I learned your parents come from La or whatever, but your grandparents also come from Fish. And I had to use that angle because I was trying to find out why he chose to invest in La and why not. And he told me, look, I'm a son of the coast. Any community that approaches me, I see what I can do. So, Doc, I'll see what I can do for you. And after all the negotiations and talk, McDan agreed to build the Teshi McDan Sports Complex worth over $3 million. And I'm happy that the things we talked about a complex that has a football arena and about 15 seaters capacity.
15,000, you mean?
15,000 spectator stand or area, long tennis courts, a boxing auditorium. Which, I mean, he described all that. Later we got McDan, the Wembley Sports Complex. We got the architect. I saw the drawings. I was so excited just by the drawings. And I can say that in 2020, when I was then a member of parliament, my last year as the MP, Dr. Macaulay himself came here with some sons of the land, the Lejokuku Teshi family. Lai Kingston himself was here that day, and we had something like a prayer and sock cutting and gave our blessing to Dr. Macaulay to start the project. Many doubted whether we could really do such a thing, but today, here we are. I mean, all glory to God and all thanksgiving to Dr. Macaulay and to Coleman for such a fantastic job. I'm so overwhelmed because in the next few weeks, on the 26th of August, Teshi is about to host its annual festival games, which normally it plays with Nungwa, a sister community. And this is the biggest game or activity for the year. And all indications show that we are about to, or it is possible to host that game and use it to open this particular stadium. I'm also excited because there are talks with some elders in the Oli, how do you call it, the club, to see whether we can have them play their local rivals, Accra Folk,
on the day.
On the day.
Wow,
and
interesting.
This is to announce this particular facility to the whole coast.
That's your AM Sports for now. We do have more sports stories on my joyonline.com. But as I leave, let me say happy birthday to former Black Stars assistant coach Ibrahim Tanko, and who is also the current coach of the Black Meteors. He led them to participate in the CAF Under-23 Cup of Nations that took place in Morocco, a competition in Morocco. One happy birthday, Ibrahim Tanko. Continue to be a friend of Joy Sports and continue to be always available for our shows. Thank you very much. Head on to myjoyonline.com and read some more sports stories. The show continues right after this.
Welcome back on the AM show. Before we kickstart, we all know that water is life, and what you put inside you, about 61% of your body, if you're a man, is formed of water. If you're a woman, slightly less. That is why you need to nourish yourself throughout the day with premium water. And I'd like to introduce you to Awake Purified Drinking Water. It is processed through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. And guess what? They have sizes perfect for everybody. For the kids, 330 milliliters, and they're good to go. You can send them off to school. For adults, 500 milliliters, 750 milliliters, 1.5 liters for the heavy drinkers. And if you're thinking of something suitable for your dispenser at your office or your home, they have something that will fit that as well. 19 milliliter jars 19 liter jar bottles for that specific purpose. So all you need to do now is stay awake with Awake Purified Drinking Water wherever you go. Now here's the heartwarming part for me. Awake Purified Drinking Water, for every bottle you purchase, an amount is donated to the kitty of the National Cardiothoracic Center. We all know how costly it is to get help in terms of cardio issues that arise. Well, each time you make a purchase, they put something in the kitty of the National Cardiothoracic Center, and that is indeed heartwarming. It's another quality product of Casapreco Company Limited. Do remember, if you'd like to purchase in bulk, the number to call 0262 351 251. This advert is FDA approved. But at this juncture, Ghana for, we contemplate the way forward for Ghana on the economic front. Nkrumah once said, we face neither east nor west, we face forward. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we cannot say same for our economy. We may wail about COVID-19, we may lament the Russo-Ukrainian war, but how about what damage we have caused ourselves in country on our own? Our debt stands at a staggering 569.3 billion Ghana cedis. We didn't get there by mistake. Yet what do we have to show? We would have expected today, and I'm a bit upset about this, because today we would have expected to hear from Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. You can see him in the background, delivering the mid-year budget review, trying to see whether there would be some relief for the ordinary Ghanaian man. Now, there's been a lot of shifting, moving. We'll do it today, we'll do it 2 days after, we'll do it today. Now we're getting it next Monday. But what? Those guests joining us this morning, what are their expectations? What should the finance minister be doing to cushion ordinary Ghanaians between now and the end of the year? Well, for that conversation, we're joined by Dr. Eric Boakye Yadom. He's a senior lecturer, Faculty of Accounting and Finance at the UPSA. We also have Dr. Michael Ayanga. He's an economist at the UDS. And Eric Amponsa-Boateng, an economist and tax consultant. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning, Ben.
All right. Did I hear everyone? I think I heard two people. Did I hear Eric Boakye?
Good morning. Good morning.
All right.
Good morning.
Okay. So let's do this. I'll start with you, Dr. Boakye Yadom. For you, what has our economy shaped up to become as of this point in time on the back of the $600 million we've received so far from the IMF, the 300 million, I should say, and what we're expecting at the end of the year? What has been the impact, I should say, on the economy from where you sit? If I asked you to give an appraisal of the economy now, that is basically what I'm asking all three of you for starters. What would you say? How far have we come? I'll start with you, Dr. Boakye Yadom.
Thank you, and good morning once again to your viewers and listeners. The 600 million received from IMF has contributed to about 4.2% growth in GDP, which is in general terms for the first quarter, I should say, of this year. In general terms, you will say we are doing well, but then you have to check the fundamentals of the growth we are receiving for the 4.2%. And you will see that service sector is contributing around 10.1%, and agri sector a little around 3%. And you see that the manufacturing sector is contracted within the same period. So what it means is that the funds received in a way has contributed, but the engine of growth, which is industry, is contracting. And why is it contracting? It's contracted based on several factors. Number one could be the taxes that government is levying on industry. And if you continue to tax industry in a certain way, you end up even eating up their capital, which means the funds available for investment. We shouldn't forget that industry has already suffered in terms of exchange rate losses. So piling more taxes to generate more revenue, which in a way government intends to achieve its medium-term budget of ensuring that its tax to GDP moves to around 18.3%. And on the other hand, in achieving the tax to GDP target, you shouldn't forget that those who are paying the taxes, which is mainly from industry, you are squeezing so much from them that will not make them sustainable going forward. So the IMF has helped, but the focus of the funding has not contributed to the sustainability of the industry. And in any way, we were expecting, if you look at agricultural growth over the period, you will see that agricultural growth is dwindling, it's reducing. We're expecting the dwindling agriculture to transition into industry. But in Ghana's case, it's not like that. The growth that moved from agricultural rather went to service. So it jumped. We didn't go through the normal transition of an emerging economy. The jumping from industry to service does not also show that the service sector is, in terms of providing the financial service and insurance and all that, it doesn't really also mean that they are doing well. It means that those in retailing, is where the funds is moving. So if we check the Ghana statistical data on the subsectors that contributed to the growth, you can see retailing and other parts are doing well. So the funds or the cushioning is pushing up importation of goods and services, which in a way will not augur well for the local economy. So we are expecting that the Minister of Finance will reposition in terms of investment to support industry, so that we'll be able to transition properly from agriculture to industry and to service. So I think this is what I'm expecting from the minister when the budget is read. And also, the funds that have been received from the fund has not gone into the direction we're expecting. We're expecting more to pushing industry to guarantee sustainability. These are my initial takes.
Dr. Boakye Adam, thank you for that initial take. Let me come to Dr. Ayanga now. Do you share in Dr. Boakye Adam's take as far as the economy is concerned? We've had the $600 million. That's the first tranche of the IMF money. We're expecting another $300 million come end of year. But when he talks about Ken Ofori-Atta re-strategizing when it comes to dealing with the economy, what is your take?
Yes, I tend to agree with him largely, especially when he's talking about the fact that agriculture has been declining, not growing. And that is a worrying trend, because that is the base of our economy. And I also agree with him largely that Ken Ofori-Atta has become largely predictable to the market and market players. And you expect that he would have probably displayed some, at least change in his approach to running the economy and to keep speculators guessing. But now you realize that people have understood that we are going to continuously struggle to meet our foreign exchange obligations. They know that we require almost 400 million to buy petroleum products and other things. So when we get money, all they do is take a calculator, do the numbers, and then they don't respond. So we have succeeded in creating an economy that has become largely resistant to economic stimulus. And we seem not to be able to nudge the economy in the right direction. So I agree that much as we think that Ken Ofori-Atta has the right to be finance minister and other things, I still feel that a change in that area would have at least given some confidence to investors. I generally don't think that we have succeeded in stabilizing the economy and we have turned around towards a more sustainable trajectory. All we have done is do like we have been doing in the past, that anytime there are inflows and there are receipts, we use them to subsidize dollars. That's what I call it, for people to hold. So that's largely the modus operandi, and that is the strategy the finance minister has adopted. And if you look at what we are seeing now, we are beginning to see even all the actors describing our economy as it ought to be. And I think somewhere last week, the World Bank finally made some of the right calls that it should have made in the early years and days of our crisis, that our economic challenges were anchored in domestic vulnerabilities, largely the mountain debt, the very rigid, what you call it, budgets, and the inflexible nature of government in terms of there is desire to cut down government expenditure and give us some fiscal space. You know, largely we have failed to generate revenue to at least even compensate for some of the huge fall that we are having. So our inability to generate these revenues, coupled with the continuous rising expenditure, is a huge, huge problem and sends a bad signal to market actors. And if you ask me, I would think that a change in at the finance ministry would at least introduce some uncertainty, introduce some degree of unpredictability, and allow market actors to at least change strategy. As it stands now, nobody actually takes us serious. And I did say the last time government passed those 3 tax bills, I indicated that they were not going to meet the revenue targets because the tax system will have a constricting effect on the economy. Now we are looking at domestic consumption declining significantly. We are looking at investor confidence almost at an all-time low. And we are looking at a situation where taxes are crippling business, high interest rates are crippling domestic investment. If you take all this into consideration and also look at the fact that in our own projections are way off, you cannot say that things are going well. I believe that the IMF deal is already beginning to fail arrival because upon receiving the 600 million, it followed the trend that we all expected. The city gained marginally, stabilized marginally, and is back to where it was, down, sliding down once again. If we get another tranche, that's basically what is going to happen. And I believe that government's failure to follow its own predictions and to implement policies that will allow it to cut down its increase revenue, protect the vulnerable sector of the economy, and also increase domestic production. These are the words of Ken Oforiatta. This is what he said he wanted to do. But if you look at what he has done exactly the opposite, and increasing taxes, and also allowing the utilities and cost of production to rise, which has further made many of our industries vulnerable. So largely, I think that I tend to agree with Dr. Yedon that the minister has not been that imposing and confidence-inspiring figure that would have provided some form of leadership to the markets. As it stands now, I think that our targets and trajectory for recovery is already beginning to fail.
Right. Let me now come to Mr. Amponsah Boateng. The 2 other panelists have had their say, and a thread I see running through, the bit about investor confidence, the bit about changing a strategy, and now, like we heard Dr. Ayanga just say, he's not cutting a confidence-inspiring figure. What is your take, Mr. Amponsah Boateng?
Thank you very much. Good morning once again, and good morning to your viewers and
and listeners. Well, you realize that from the beginning of the year, we had to introduce, or the government had to introduce an additional 2.5%, okay, for the VAT. So it shot up from 12.5% to 15%. What has happened is that has led to an increase in revenue mobilization. And that is why the GRA was able to exceed its target for the first quarter. Okay, it's also because of the reason is that the depreciation of the cedi was also there, because you realize that the exchange rate, okay, let's look at the last quarter of 2022, the rates, and let's compare them with the first quarter of 2023. And so even though the import duties, okay, they haven't changed, but because of the depreciation of the cedi, you're now paying more. Now you ask yourself, last 2 or 3 years, if you were buying an item, let's say for 100 cedis, today, how much are you paying for it? We also have to look at the fact that the DDUP has actually led to people.
Hello,
People
Mr.
losing revenue. And you will agree with me that when you have so much disposable income. Hello?
We lost you for about 30 seconds. Can you just go back and take it from there?
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes. The point I'm making is that if you are an individual and you normally save your money or invest your money, and then due to the debt exchange program, you lose that revenue, what happens is that consumption declines. And we know that what we invest, okay, is normally through the savings that we have that eventually leads to investment. And that is what makes the economy grow. The other issue is that when we got the first tranche of the IMF loan, you'll agree with me that temporarily we saw the cedi appreciating against the dollar. But for the past 2 weeks, you can see that the cedi is beginning to fall. And rightly so, because what we were expecting that money to be used for, what we have done is to just make sure that we introduce the dollar into the system, and that pushed the cedi to appreciate. Like my other friend also said, government has introduced 3 new bills. Okay, you look at the growth and sustainability levy. You look at the excise duty. You also look at the Income Tax Act. Okay, if you look at the changes that have been made, I think the individual or the employee is worse off. We have a situation whereby an employee who earns a chargeable income of more than 50,000 cedis in a month is going to pay 35% of it as PAYE. This same issue came up in 2018, if you agree with me, whereby from August 2018 till December 2018, we also had this happening, and we kicked against it. And that is the reason why from 1st of January, there was an amendment, and then we got back to the 30%. When you look at the corporate tax rate, it's still 25%. And for those on the stock exchange and probably those in the hospitality, they are on 22%. But individuals are paying more tax or taxes than the corporate bodies. The other issue is that industry is affected. The cost of doing business in Ghana has now increased, and it's because of the high import duties on items that we import to be able to produce the goods that we have. We also have the tariffs, electricity,
water, and even transportation. So when you put all of that together, what it means is that those people in the manufacturing sector and even those doing businesses generally have a challenge. What it means is that your net profit is going to decrease. And so even though we were expecting that at the end of the day, we'll be able to exceed the revenue target, I'm afraid it will not happen. Another issue that you can mention is that in the past, when you have exchange losses, okay, they were deductible. Now, per the new law, they are saying that if the exchange losses have not been realized, then it means that they are not going to allow them as a deductible expense. And then we're also looking at the growth and sustainability levy. Fine, some of them, depending on which sector that you are in, some of them are paying 5% of their net profit before tax. Others are paying 2.5%. And what even surprises me is the fact that if you are making losses continuously for 5 years, you are being told that you are going to pay a percentage of your output, okay? And all of us know that we always have to match your output with what? The expenses or the expenditure that went into the generation of that income or that output. And so that is where industries are going to suffer the more. And so if you ask me, I think that we haven't done so well as an economy. You look at the rate of inflation, it is still very high. You also find that the policy rates, interest rates are also very high. Now, one issue that even if we do not handle it well, is going to be a problem to us is the treasury bills. I am just imagining or wondering how government will be able to pay, because I foresee a situation whereby government may not be able to pay. And if you are not fortunate, then we may probably have the haircut. So the advice is that if you're not too sure, I would rather say that move your funds from the T-bills and place them in fixed deposits. At least some of the banks are offering between 14 and 15%. And so at least with that one, you are sure that your money or your monies are safe. So on the whole, okay, I do not think that we've actually been on course. Just one more thing. You know, we were looking at a 3% growth rate by the end of the year 2023. The IMF reviewed it to 2.8, and now the IMF is even saying that we may end up having a growth rate of 1.6%, which means that we are way off the target that we set for ourselves.
Right. And so that obviously is a concern. Let me come to Dr. Ayanga briefly on this point, and maybe Dr. Eric Boakye Adam afterwards. I'll pose the same question to you. But starting with Dr. Ayanga, if you look at our tax revenue trajectory over the last 5 months, okay, you would realize that it stood at 5.6%, leaving us with a deficit of 1.8% compared to our expenditure, which stood at 7.4%. If you look at that, the fact that we're taxing ourselves so much, yet our expenditure is still some 1.8 percentage points ahead of what we hope to raise by way of revenue. That vis-a-vis whether we are getting taxed too much, whether some of the tax handles should be taken off. What are your expectations? I've spoken to people who have said that, look, take out the COVID-19 levy. In fact, the e-levy, Professor Bokpin has said the e-levy should go. What is your take, Dr. Ayanga?
Yes, I have already indicated that the e-levy was an unnecessary introduction, and it's something that has dampened the electronic money transaction business in the country while not raking in the expected revenue. So it's an unnecessary evil. We ought to let it go and then at least allow the increased volume in activity to generate some production, and then we can tax. But hey, why are we missing our revenue targets in the midst of increasing taxes? The message to government is simple. People pay taxes when they make profits. So if you are taxing high and not meeting your targets, it means people are not making profits. And people are not making profits because, first, the cost of business is rising. Secondly,
Hello, Dr. Ayanga. Can you hear me? Dr. Ayanga, are you still there? It appears the connectivity this morning is not really helping us. Let me try Dr. Boache Adam to find out whether the connection will be any better. Same question to you, Eric. What is your take on the bit of taxes? No. I was going to Dr. Boache Adam.
Okay. So there are two areas. Thank you. My take on the taxes is this: that I do not expect the finance minister to take off any taxes, because in the mind of the government, although the expenditure is more than revenue, in the mind of the government over the years shows that they rather want to increase revenue to make up the expenditure rather than cutting down the expenditure.
That may be true, but that may be true, Doc. But consider that VAT has increased by those 2.5 percentage points. That inflation is where it is over the last 2 months. It has ticked up again. And that we have those 3 new tax handles in addition to the COVID-19 levy and the e-levy.
I'm thinking that the government introduced the 3 new taxes because they realized that the e-levy was not going to give them the needed revenue. And there should be an alternative way to cushion up the revenue that is expected. We shouldn't forget that the government in the budget has a medium-term target. That is to raise revenue to about 18.3 or so percent. So they are trying to exploit various avenues. I'm not encouraging that it is a good thing to do, but I'm looking into the mind and what the government has been doing over the years. And these taxes affect industries, and it affects it affects industry output. Industry output also influences inflation. Inflation also influences the exchange rate and interest rate. So there is a transmission mechanism, and the government is found himself between the devil and the Red Sea, whether to cut down taxes to increase industry output or to increase taxes to get the needed revenue to fund it. So you will need a holistic view as to the exact thing that government wants to do, because you cannot keep talking about industry being engine of growth and reviving industry and keep levying new taxes. I do not expect the minister to reduce any of the taxes. However, the ideal thing I would have recommended that if we have brought new tax handling, the e-levy should have been scrapped off, so that you will find innovative ways to expand the new taxes that is brought to rake in the revenue that you are missing from the e-levy. But hey, I don't think the minister is going to do that, because they are looking for ways to make more money so that they can keep spending. Don't forget the election year is just ahead, and cutting down your revenue handles or your tax handles is going to affect your ability to meet certain caps that will let you look good for the next election. So they know the ideal thing, but I don't think it's convenient for them to do at this moment.
They know the ideal thing, but you have your own doubts about how sustainable this will be. Dr. Ayanga, I hope you're back now. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Dr. Ayanga? Okay, it appears Dr. Ayanga is still not with us. I'll come to you then, Mr. Amposa. Dr. Ayanga, can you hear me now? Okay, so
yes, I can hear you
work on your connection, Dr. Ayanga. When it's better, I will come to you. Mr. Amponsa Boateng, so on that very point that was made in terms of, since you are the taxman, if you look at our deficit, where it stands, 1.8%, comparatively, that is the 5.6% of domestic tax revenue vis-a-vis our GDP, and our expenditure, which stands at 7.4%. Is this where you expected us to be at this point in the year? Were your expectations that we would be faring better, or do you think we are actually riding this wave?
Thank you. I think that, you see, for you to be able to achieve your revenue target, there must be compliance, okay? And therefore, if you are introducing new taxes, I've always maintained that you need to engage the stakeholders so that they will also make an input. Notwithstanding that they have gone ahead to do so, what is going to happen is that these industries or these taxpayers will not be able to generate the revenue or the profit that you expect that will even enable them to be paying the taxes that are expected. For example, let's take the growth and sustainability levy, which is saying that you pay a percentage of your net profit before tax. So if your business is not doing well, at the end of the day, you're going to post net losses before tax. So what it means is that government is losing out on all of that. The other issue is that, in fact, I expect the COVID levy to go off. It should go off because we are no longer experiencing the effects of the COVID as we used to be in the past. I also expect that the finance minister will reintroduce the toll booths. And this time, I expect all the toll booths in the country to be mechanized. Okay? Because if that is done, you realize that the expected revenue will be 4 or 5 times. The other area that I would want the finance minister to look at is the withholding tax regime. The withholding tax regime, and then the stability clauses that we have in some of the agreements that we have. I also expect government to reduce the import levies for specific goods that may be imported and used as raw materials, so that the manufacturing sector will be able to increase its output. And when that happens, you will agree with me that it will lead to an expansion in those businesses. And eventually, when that happens, employment will also increase. So I think that, yes, there's a lot that we can do. Instead of probably introducing these new tax measures, I expected us to look at expanding the tax net. And that is one area that I've always maintained that, yes, the GRA is doing better now with the introduction of the tax identification number, and also that your TIN also merged with the Ghana card. You also have the GRA also now having the high net worth office, where I know that certain persons who lead certain lifestyles have been invited to the GRA, and they're actually making some monies from them. We can also mention the property rate, which in the past it was there, but its implementation wasn't that good. I think so far GRA has done well, and so you can now even go on a portal and put in your details, and then you'll be able to pay. And then one major thing, we lose money.
Very quickly on that, Mr. Amponsa Boateng, I want to go back to Dr. Ayanga, but
okay.
So very quickly on that, let me find out, when you said the bit about the high net worth individuals, should we also be looking at politicians? I mean, of course, Cecilia Abnabda has come into the fray recently with what was found in her home, but should we also be looking at politically exposed people and maybe ramping it up by way of tax revenue in terms of how much they have, especially if those sums of money have not gone through the tax system?
Yes. Last week, or was it this week that the story broke out? I was
just when it gets interesting. Just when it gets really interesting. So we'll see whether we can connect to Mr. Amponsah Boateng. If not, we'll move on to Mr. Amponsah Boateng. Are you back with us?
Yes.
All right. So briefly on that point.
What I'm saying is that the High Net Worth Office has to invite the former minister and also the financial intelligence, because we must be able to know the source of that money. And if you look at our tax laws, even if the money was earned outside and the income is brought into the country, it has tax implications. Finally, is an area that all of us have mentioned, and nothing much has been done, which is corruption. Look, we lose a lot of revenue due to some officials of the GRA condoning and conniving with the taxpayers. And also, even when it comes to procurement system in the country, there is so much corruption and we lose a lot of money. And I believe that the last time that we met, we had a discussion on it, and we're losing about $3 billion a year. And that is the amount that we've run to the IMF to actually take, so that we'll be able to support the budget.
Okay. Let me bring in Dr. Ayanga now. So in case you missed a bit, because you're now joining us on phone, some of the things that Mr. Amponsah Boateng just made mention of, he expects that government will retain its tax, the number of taxes, and he is saying that there should be the reintroduction, which we've spoken of, by the way, of the tolling system on our roads, and he expects them to be mechanized this time around to guarantee efficiency and effectiveness. Then he talks about a reduction in the import levies. What is your take on that? And add to that, Dr. Ayanga, we've heard former Finance Minister Seth Terkper talk about the Treasury bill system and how government seems to be unduly leaning on it as a sort of crutch. It's a short-term, if you like, debt instrument, and of course we're looking at 91 days to a year, but it appears government is leaning more and more towards that. How dangerous is it if government relies inordinately on Treasury bills? Those two quick questions for you.
Yes, Ben, I don't expect government to take off the e-levy, or for that matter, 2.5 VAT. The reason being that these taxes were imposed because government wanted to prove to the IMF that it is doing everything domestically possible to raise its revenues, and for that matter, be able to secure the IMF deal. So much of the taxes we are having is not necessarily the revenue objectives that they have for those taxes, but then to project an image of working to secure domestic revenues and to ensure that at least we are raising some significant revenues on our own. It will not be morally right for you to keep your taxes low and then go asking people to cancel your debts. So what the government was doing, it knew very well that those taxes were going to cripple the economy, was going to dampen domestic production, and was going to also dampen consumer confidence. And once businesses are not making profits, you are not going to get the taxes and the revenues you need. So everybody knew that. But government did it anyway because it wanted to prove to the IMF that it is raising taxes. It has the mandate to increase taxes, and it is doing everything possible to ensure that it restores the country on a sustainable path, but at least increasing our revenue to GDP and by so doing can continue to secure IMFD. You can see that it is already introducing another round of domestic debt exchange program. That is because those taxes are not generating the revenue government needs. And therefore, government has to prove again that it can still do something. There's still some tools left in the gamut to raise domestic revenue. That is something it's going to play because it has to go back to the IMF for the next tranche. And because our first round of debt exchange and our negotiation with our external partners, especially in the markets, are not going well, government has to return and pretend to be doing something in order to get the next tranche. And when it comes to the removal of the e-levy and the introduction of the road toll, it's neither here nor there, because the e-levy was introduced on the back of the removal of road tolls. Government felt that it was going to raise significant revenue to the extent that it didn't need the road tolls. So now that government is thinking about introducing the road tolls again, then we ought to be asking questions whether the e-levy that doesn't have to be scrapped in its entirety, because government wanted to introduce it. That's why it cleared up the road tolls, which was a bad decision anyway, because it is a better tool at mobilizing revenue rather than trying to go through the e-levy. That's what I would say. But as it stands now, we do not seem to have a grip in terms of raising domestic revenue. All our targets are off. If you look at our what you call our revenue projections, we are running a deficit of almost 9%, about 8.9%. So if you take that into consideration, look at our own GDP projection. We wanted to grow at 2.8. We are doing 1.5, and others think that is going to be lower. If you take all these things into consideration, and even now, add the fact that our debt stock just went up by about 20%, then it tells you that...
We're talking of the Bank of Ghana's situation, right?
Yes. So, then...
Dr. Ayanga, go ahead. I was just saying that the 20%, you are referencing the Bank of Ghana, the situation to do with the Bank of Ghana.
Yes. I'm referencing that, and I'm saying that on the back of the IMFD, we should have seen some signals. First, the cedi should have at least gained, or if for nothing at all, stabilized. Second, we should have seen some significant reduction in our debt stock. Some will say it is because government has now recognized some of its obligations and brought in some debt, but it's still not satisfactory. We should have seen some growth returning, or we've been on the trajectory, at least meeting half of our growth projections. That we are not doing. So if you look at exports, which was one of the key things that government said it was going to do, exports are falling. They try to argue that imports are also falling, but imports have fallen because industries are not importing the raw materials and the inputs to produce. So these symptoms of a collapsing economy, and we ought to have a new approach entirely. You want to ask government, was there a single strategy or a single program that it wanted to at least invest these proceeds from the IMF in? No, it was just the usual take it and shore up our reserves, make sure that we improve our liquidity position. And let me say something. People have lost confidence in the financial system. So, yes, leave the CCL issue. That is a different ballgame together. But people are keeping their monies at home. Because of the domestic debt exchange program, nobody wants to buy bonds. People are even afraid of putting their money in treasury bills. And yes, you are right by saying that government is overly dependent on it and borrowing more or less through the treasury bills. But confidence in the financial system is at a high time low. it's really, really low that people keep money in their homes. People don't invest. People tend to rather buy other things and then keep foreign currency. So when they get cities, they buy dollars and keep it.
Right.
So that is why we keep pumping dollars into the economy, and in a matter of days, everything gets sucked up, and it is not translating in economic growth. It's not translating in productivity. And because of the taxes, rising cost of production, investor confidence is also low. So if you look at everything that's ought to be improving because we have got this IMF deal, they're going down. And the one thing that government could have done, that is by demonstrating commitment, that is cutting the size of government significantly, and then showing leadership in this. Government is not doing it. So, and it is the only flexible part, I can say, in our entire budget, cutting down government spending, reducing the size of government significantly,
right,
and then following up with other sectors. Until we see these things happening, we are not going to witness at least some recovery. And the 2025 that people are even projecting that will start recovery, we may shoot well beyond that, and this country may suffer for a little longer.
Dr. Boachi Adam, let me bring you into the fray, because the rhetoric from Dr. Ayanga does not reflect what Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has been telling us. In fact, he talks about a quick economic rebound. If I may source from the Daily Graphic today, he says he has assured the business community that the economy is bouncing back and has called for its collaboration to make that happen within the shortest possible time. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has been very optimistic. Does that optimism reflect your posture as a watcher of the economic space, especially as Dr. Ayanga says that confidence in the financial sector is at an all-time low? Do you lean more towards the finance minister or more towards what Dr. Ayanga is saying?
I would rather go with Dr. Ayanga, because we look at the history of the finance minister who was confident that we're not going to IMF, and we still went to IMF. So it almost appears like when the finance minister takes left, we should be looking at right because of the history. Now, and I would also encourage that the finance minister shouldn't promise so much to raise expectations. Because when the finance minister promised, in order to probably show like we are attempting, the country is attempting to achieve something, it brings almost like a reversal of fortune. And there's a more reason why I think that the country has moved from production to taxation, which is contrary to what Dr. Baumia told us some time ago. And giving us a clear picture of the economy, I think will make Ghanaians expect less. But when we raise our hopes of going to do this, we should expect a quick turnaround, a quick stability. I think is very problematic. And in any case, you see, the problem we find ourselves in is like trying to make a salt sea taste like putting sugar in the sea. Although you may be able to achieve your aim, but it will take a longer time, So telling us that this is the reality of the case, we need about 10 years, the next 7 years. We'll even let labor not agitate for increments in pay. We'll let investors and industry know where to put their investment. And like Mr. Eric Amponsa was trying to say earlier, that people should move their investment from treasury bill to fixed deposits. I tend to disagree a little, because whichever way they move their money, these banks don't believe so much in the industry, so they're unlikely to give their money to industry, but rather go back and buy treasury bills and keep rolling over. So the real sector, the connection between the financial sector and the real sector is a bit disjointed, that we do not see a transition that the financial sector is financing activities to promote industry and growth. They gather the money and they go back and dump it into treasury bills, because it almost looks like that is the safest thing to do now, rather than to gamble with your money and put it in an industry that may fall down or that may not be able to yield expected returns. If industry is shrinking by about 3%,
right,
it obviously means that whatever you are putting there, you are losing. And no financial institution or no bank will want to go into that. So the finance minister should relax, should give us a clear picture, and let us know that it will take a very long time, and therefore Ghanaians should exercise patience. And I think that will rather help us not to expect so much from the finance minister and the government. Thank you.
Dr. Boakye Adam, we're wrapping the conversation now. I'll give each one of you about some 2 minutes to express your thoughts. I want to start with you. So the first bit I want all of you to address when you get your turn. We're also looking at this renewed debt exchange. This time we're talking about the cocoa bills. We're also looking at the dollar-denominated bills or bonds. We know what is happening with the treasury bills, and already we've discussed that government cannot rely on them. But with this renewed debt exchange situation, what could be the impact of that? What could it lead to a further crunch in the system? And then finally, when the budget is delivered, what are those crucial matters you want to hear Ken Ofori-Atta address? So I'll start with you again, Dr. Boakye Adam. This will be your final bite. Those 2 areas for each one of you. Doc.
Okay, so I'll start with the last question. What do I expect the finance minister to do? Number one, you shouldn't promise us so much. All right, we can feel it, although we don't have the figures. We can feel that things are not going well. So you should just come and confirm our fears that we should embrace ourselves for the West and that things will not change soon. And in that case, we'll be measured, even in spending the little we have. But if you promise us so much, we'll go shopping and we come back to find out that what we promised cannot be delivered. We have already spent what we accumulated. So the finance minister should be measured in telling us the way forward, and in revising, especially in revising the indicators. And you could see most often they give us so much hope, then in the media they revise it downwards. And it's in the case of the E-levy where they were expecting about 2.24 billion Ghana cedis, and in the first quarter they were able to do about only 11% of it. So it seems that clearly your revenue handles, you are not going to meet the target for the year. And it's a concern. So you shouldn't promise us so much. Now let's come to the financial sector. In the second wave of debt restructuring, in finance, there's something we call signaling. What happened, what the Minister of Sanitation, Ms. Cecilia Dapar did, signal to investors that the managers of economy have a certain information that we don't have. That is why, assuming that the money is genuine, that is why the minister is not taking that $1 million and the 300,000 euros to the bank. So if I'm an investor who is not privy to certain sensitive information, I will look at what the minister has done and find an alternative avenue for my money, especially when we could sense that there's a second wave coming of debt restructuring. I will not be so much in hurry to invest in anything relating to government, or I will find some. That is why you could see that a lot of investment is going to the real estate sector. That people are putting money into building, probably because the only investment which is real, and the other one is just a financial arrangement, So investors are watching, and whatever our leaders or those in government are doing is indirectly sending signal to us that we are not out of, the country has not stabilized yet. And therefore, we should be mindful whenever we decide to go to the financial sector. So with the dollar bill that is coming and the cocoa bill, all those that are coming, it also tell us that we are going to borrow more and that we can only defer the interest up to a point. And when we start paying the interest on those debts, we'll be expecting exchange rate to respond to it, and the dollar will be the cedi will depreciate more, And if these bills go through and they are unable to negotiate a good terms to defer interest payment, I'm estimating that we will go back to 15 Ghana cedis per dollar before the year ends. These are my takes. Thank you.
Right. And that is a place we don't want to be, about $16, 16 cedis to the dollar. That's not a place we want to be. But it's interesting, that bit you said about the signaling. Unwittingly, Cecilia Dapa, by the discovery, may have signaled to the business community, you know what, maybe there's something in there that you are not aware of. But those who walk the corridors of power are aware of. But let me come to you, Mr. Amponsa Boateng, for your final take on those two quick points.
Okay, thank you very much. What I'll say is that the government still will not be able to pay. If you look at the cocoa bills, you also look at the dollar-denominated bonds, and it's because of a simple reason. The revenue that we get will still not be enough. You will agree with me that GRA has exceeded or was able to exceed its revenue target for 2021 and 2022. The problem is that government expenditure is still very, very high. So I expect the finance minister to look at that and then ensure that with the budget review, he cuts down significantly on some of the areas that I think we do not have to spend so much money on. The other issue that he has mentioned is the fact that he expects the economy to bounce back. I do not see it happening in the foreseeable future. And the reasons are simple. Inflation is still high. The cost of doing business is still high. And so at the end of the day, whatever that industry or whatever that the businessman would want to invest in, I do not think he or she will do so. And so I expect him in the mid-year review budget to come up with investor-friendly policies that will rather attract investment into the country, and also look at the loopholes or the leakages in the revenue mobilization drive. Because if you look at how much revenue that we lose in a year, that is huge. And so I expect him to look at that. As for the depreciation of the cedi, looking at the trend, I can assure you that we might end the year with an exchange rate of $1 to 15 Ghana cedis, or probably 16 Ghana cedis. And I don't think that will augur well for us. I expect us rather to consume what we produce. We must change our lifestyle.
All right.
For breakfast, why should we be looking at the old, the foreign ones? Why don't
Mr. Amponsa Boateng, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I think the thrust of your message has been made known. So we have Dr. Boakye Adam projecting 16 cedis to the dollar by close of year if we don't get our act together. That would be crazy. We have Mr. Amponsa Boateng also predicting 15 or 16 to the dollar. Dr. Ayanga, in less than a minute, please, your final take. We have to wrap.
My final take is the government ought to turn to the basics. We diversify economy from agriculture. When things go bad, you go back to the basics. That is, we grow back to agriculture by investing in food production. If we cut food budget, even in the small households, they make savings and they invest. So we really have to regrow the economy from inside out. This idea of trying to stimulate industry and other things when agriculture is suffering, we are not going to succeed in that. So I expect the finance minister to target growth in the agricultural sector in his budget review, target debt reduction, not just merely pushing and appearing to fight debt treatment. It should target debt reduction. Government should stop borrowing, especially through the treasury bills and live within the means. And then I also think that government seriously cut the size of its government. On the CCDAPA issue, it is telling everybody that don't put your money in the bank. $1 million, if you are talking $100 bills, is just 10 bundles. By the time somebody picks money out of 10 bundles and you don't know, it means that there's a huge stash of cash in that house. So
thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ayanga. So I think that signaling was already mentioned by Dr. Eric Boakye-Adom, but thank you for reinforcing that point. Our guests this morning who have joined us for this conversation, Dr. Eric Boakye-Adom, Senior Lecturer, Faculty of Accounting and Finance at the University of Professional Studies, Accra. We also had Dr. Michael Ayanga. You just heard him. He's an economist at the UDS, together with Eric Amponsa-Boateng, economist and tax consultant. What are your expectations ahead of the budgetary statement, the mid-year budget review? Well, you can shoot your comments to us on social media. And just stay with us. We have more coming your way on the AM show.
Good morning to you. Thank you for staying here on the AM show. It's a good morning for many of us, but not so good for a young student of the Atta College who's been a victim of bullying. I'm sure you may have seen that video, too graphic to be replayed here. I mean, if you've seen that video, I'm sure you cringed as I did. But for those of you who may not be aware, there's a video that has gone viral of a student of Atta College holding the neck of another, choking him this way, and then slamming his head into the metal frame of the bed. It's really disturbing. Instantly, you see the one who has been bullied have a swell, and then he starts bleeding. The Ghana Education Service has released a statement saying that the police is investigating the matter. The school authorities have also tweeted saying. But this morning, we want to have a conversation about bullying. Those of you who have been through the system in Ghana, you know that in some of the schools, it's the norm, especially for a fresher, a Form 1 student coming in. For absolutely no reason, you are subjected to all forms of inhumane activities, hitting, beating, being asked to do ridiculous things, and you just wonder how that forms part of an education system. You are made to believe that it happened before you came in, so it's a tradition. But should this continue, we'd also like to understand what happens to people who are bullied, like this young gentleman. And we'd also like to go into the mind of the one perpetrating the act. Why do people bully? This morning I've been joined by Dr. Ruth Owusu-Entry. She's head of the psychiatry department at the Komfanoche Teaching Hospital. We also have Dr. Peter Anti, who is very interested in what happens in the education space. Let me start with you, Doc, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this morning. We've seen the video. It's a disheartening one. I've described it to those who've not seen it. But tell us exactly what happens to young people who are bullied, or persons who are bullied generally.
And good morning to your viewers. I think that this has got bullying has got a psychological impact on students.
Sorry, Doc. Dr. Peter Anti, that question was to Dr. Ruth Owusu-Entry.
Oh, okay,
sorry.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, good morning to you all. Thank you for having me on this discussion. Bullying has a lot of negative psychological and mental effect and impact on the survivors or the victim. I have personally have to see or attend to young people in the secondary schools and sometimes adults in the working space who have been bullied. One typical one I remember was when this young man was asked to give off all his provisions, shito, needle, etc., sardine, just so he will be spared being beaten and bullied and all that in a boys' school. And so he kept ringing the father to say that I've been asked to buy book A, textbook B, just to be able to get money and bribe his seniors from bullying him. Eventually, his father became suspicious of the excessive intake of the money and then praised him, only to find out that he was bullying. The worst thing was that he started hearing voices when he had even vacated and had come home of these seniors who were screaming on him. He was talking in his sleep and all that. After seeing him and listening that all of this was precipitated by bullying, I just decided to hold on even start antipsychotics because this boy was clearly hallucinating. And just psychotherapy or some counseling and then moving him away from the source of bullying and then also punishing this senior eventually sent away all the voices he was persistently hearing. And so the negative mental health impact on people who are bullied cannot be overemphasized. People get depressed, they get anxious, they live with post-traumatic stress disorder, and then their academics decline just because of bullying. Research has also proved that 1 out of every 10 students that drops out of school is purely because of bullying and nothing else. And so I think that it's about time this habit and this ritual or tradition stopped in all secondary schools. The fact that you were bullied does not mean that you should bully other people.
And most importantly, I'd just like for us to go into the mind of the person who is bullying another person. Why do they do it? What goes to the mind of a bully? Exactly what prompts them to behave like that?
So bullying can be seen in the light of a form of abuse, and it can take several forms, either physical or verbal. And it is very common that people who have themselves been bullied are more prone to bullying other people. So they begin to see it as a norm. After all, it happened to me, and so the tradition must go on. Okay, so that cycle must be broken. If people stop bullying other people, the cycle of producing bullies in the future also stops. And so people should stop bullying. Simple. And by that stopping, bullies will be taken out of the system or bullying will stop. In other times, people have seen it being done to other people. And so by experiencing or seeing or being in the view of bullying activities, they also learn it and want to give it to other people. Usually there is no basic or there is no serious reasons why people should bully. It's out of fun. It is a tradition. It was done to me, so let me do it to you. And so one of the ways is to just stop that cycle, because bullied people are themselves bullies. And so when we stop bullying people, we stop producing bullies.
How does upbringing play a role in somebody either turning out to be a bully or not? Because sometimes in the books you read, especially when they are toddlers, when they want to establish dominance as young children, this is mine, this is not yours, and you're told to handle it carefully, because if you aren't cautious, you may be raising a child who will end up being a bully.
You are absolutely right. Upbringing has some role in producing children or young people that become bullies later in their life. And more so in children who are growing up in a very abusive environment, in an environment where the father or the mother is abusive physically or verbally. It is a way that it gets ingrained in their upbringing, in their environmental role of their nature, and so that the upbringing involves nature and nature. And so some of the things or characters or behavior that children pick up whilst growing is what they pick up from the environment. And so when they consistently see adults or parents being abusive, being drunk, abusing substances and all that, they themselves will grow up to be like such adults.
Doc, I'll come back to you. Let me bring in Dr. Peter Anti now. Doc, you work in the education space, and like I said, I don't know what your experience was like in high school, but I did see people being bullied, and like Doc said, it was just for the fun of it. People say, well, that's how we do it. Form 1, they're homoing you, they're slapping you, they're asking you to kneel and do other funny things. How has the education system over the years fostered and nurtured this very act of bullying?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers. Yes, I think that it's more of a culture that has evolved in most of our senior high schools and even at the tertiary level, where students are subjected to various forms of bullying. Some used to be non-violent, so you are asked to either do one or two things, dress in a certain manner, or sing some profane songs and other things, just for the fun of it. And this seems to be one of the things that have engulfed our educational system. It's also built into school culture, where in some of the schools, especially the boys' schools, these things are very, very prevalent. So that is how this bullying has been. But in most instances where the bullying tends to be violent, it's more from people who are a little bit into other substances, and that is from a personal experience, because I remember in those days in school, those who would engage you violently in terms of activities of bullying are those who were seen as seniors who were involved in other substances, and that was very worrying. So that is the school culture that we have built over the years. It seems to have toned down in recent times till this particular video emerged last night.
Doc, so I went to a senior high school, a government senior high school. And I remember at the time I entered my third year, the headmistress at the time, Mrs. Sarah Wilson, may her soul rest in peace, made a decision to end that practice, especially when Form 1s enter senior high school and they're bullied by the Form 3s. And there were colleagues in the senior year who thought, well, why? It's now our time to get our revenge, because it was, it was done to us, and you're withholding. It almost felt like it was a right. And that's why I understand why Dr. Ruth says that most bullies are persons who have been bullied themselves, because then you feel like it's something that I need to do to feel satisfied, to get even though the person you're bullying is not the one who bullied you. But what I'm driving at is, it took one headmistress to end a practice, even though the students were, the seniors were unhappy about it. You realize that you didn't have people who were being beaten, who were being asked to stretch their hands and being slapped at the back, and all those kind of things. Dr. Peter Anti, why are our headmistresses and our school authorities allowing these things to continue? Is it that they don't know how to end the practice, or they just also some way believe that, oh, this is just normal, behavior expected of young people? What has your experience been in this arena when it comes to the education space?
Yeah, so as I said, it has built up into the school culture, and so some teachers, and I don't want to go to the headmasters now, some teachers feel that it is one of the things or the orientations that students need to go through when they when they enter the campus. But when it tends to be violent, then it becomes problematic because, as I indicated earlier on, some of these practices are non-violent, singing songs, dressing in a certain way, marching around, and all those things.
But Doc, bullying is bullying, right? Bullying is bullying, because I was just telling someone in the newsroom, and when I went to high school, I was asked to smooch a pillow. And I said, I won't do it because it violates me and what I stand for, and I feel abused. So it may appear to be non-violent, but it still has a certain impact on the one who is being bullied. There are stories of people who were just teased because they wet their bed. That's not violence, but the people ended up having some mental issues. Let me just ask you to hold on there. Let me go back to Doc because she's on with us.
I was building a point.
All right, okay, you build your point.
We're asking why the headmasters have not been able to end this. And I was saying that there are two categories of bullying, the violent one and the non-violent one. In most instances, the school authorities focus so much on the violent bullying than the non-violent one. And so until some of these violent ones come up, it becomes difficult for the school authorities to even identify. Again, these are the reasons why we have authorities at different levels on campus. So you have the dorm prefect, you have the house prefect, then you have the house master, and then you have the senior house master, and then you have the other headmaster, and so on and so forth. And it is believed that any activity that happens in the dorm, because normally these things happen in the dormitories, any activity that happens in the dormitory should be reported to the house prefect and forwarded to the senior house master, and so on and so forth. So if these things do not happen, it will be very difficult for a headmaster who sits at the top to really know what is really happening in each dormitory on campus. And their inability to stop this stems from the fact that those who are involved are also those who are sometimes supposed to report these activities to the relevant authorities.
That's a fantastic point you make, because I was even going to say that sometimes the prefects themselves are quite problematic. But let me come to Doc. Doc, a few pointers from Dr. Anti-Submission. So the mindset, like he says, of certain people that, oh, this is non-violent, so allow whatever it is. Yeah, they are young people, they'll get over it. Just help us understand how some of those non-violent forms of bullying also affect those who are being bullied. Dr. Ruth? Do I still have Dr. Ruth with me?
Yeah, someone said if you inflict a physical wound, it will heal. But when it is emotional, it may stay forever. How are you going to get into the person's emotional space and dress that wound? And so the most severe and dangerous and worrying outcome or consequence of bullying is the verbal ones, okay, or even the silent ones. There are times that people are bullied in the form of excluding them from everything. And so if it is a dorm prefect or a senior, a house prefect or something, you deliberately set your eyes on one particular form, one student or junior, and you tell the person, look, you are not coming for the games, you are not going for prep, you are not attending the entertainment night, you are not going to church. They deliberately exclude you. They have not said anything as an insult per se, or they have not beaten you to inflict any physical wound, but that is another huge form of bullying that makes the person feel left alone, lowers the person's self-esteem. That would affect their afterlife. There are times people use verbal ways to abuse others, and by whatever way, whether they come from maybe poor homes, you don't have this, your dress is torn, you are wearing an old shoe, your shoe is half, your soul is half gone, all sorts of verbal things really kill the spirit in the layman term, so affect people emotionally and psychologically. And these are some of the things that build mistrust between people and their close associates. So this person grows and they can't trust anybody. They enter relationships and they can't trust anybody. They get employed at the workplace, they can't trust their boss, they can't trust a senior colleague to be able to walk them through the work ethics or how the work should be done. So they are suffering a load. And this is just to mention the non-diagnosable issues that will happen after even non-verbal or non-physical bullying. The diagnosable ones, people getting into substance abuse just to feel accepted or just to be able to forget about their troubles, people landing in suicide, people getting depressed or developing some form of anxiety disorder are some of the very severe outcomes of even the non-fiscal abuse. And so by all standards, abuse is wrong, whether it is fiscal or non-fiscal.
Right. Doc, I know that there are supposed to be counseling units in our schools. So Dr. Anti clearly said that sometimes those who are expected to enforce the school rules to ensure that students are being protected are the ones who end up bullying the students themselves. And today I want to go very raw and unedited. I had a personal experience of where a teacher in particular, just like you said, just set her eyes on me, said very unpalatable things about me to my other colleagues for no apparent reason. And I remember being very broken. So things like, oh, you want to get a prize in this school, you never get a prize. Things like, oh, you see this girl, she pretends to be a Christian, she's not a Christian. I mean, for no apparent reason. And these are things that really broke me. But here I am, as a young student, and I don't know who to turn to. This is a teacher. This is somebody who has a certain supervisory role over me. There is no safe space for a lot of students to go to run to report such issues. Dr. Anti, why are our counseling units not functioning? What do we know to be the problem? Hello, Dr. Anti.
I think Dr. Anti dropped.
All right, too bad. All right, Doc. So let me come to you then. I just wanted him to establish for us what the situation is like in the schools. But since I still have you, let's talk about the solutions here. What do students do in circumstances like this? Who do they talk to? Because largely we know that the counseling departments in many of our schools don't function properly. So what is the way of escape? And how can parents pick cues? That's the most important thing for me, because if you have a child who is not talking about being bullied, how do you as a parent pick cues? And what kind of help do you offer your child if they're being bullied?
So several levels of help is available. And the first and the immediate one is to talk to your school counselor. Unfortunately, most school counselors have schooled in the country themselves. They have been victims of bullying. And so I have had instances when these young people said, I reported to the school counselor, I reported to my teacher, and they brushed it off. They said, oh, you'll grow out of it. One day you'll be a senior and all of this will be over. And it's broke my heart. And so there has to be a whole paradigm shift of what bullying is, the impact. If people know the negative impact, they would better be in a position to stop it and stop that cycle. And so school counselors should get periodic training as and when it is necessary. You don't employ a school counselor and they are there years, they don't get any refresher training. So every school head should take it upon him or herself to give periodic training to their school counselors. There are other things that help in terms of training some of the students themselves to be peer counselors. And in our universities, it is very, very much effective. KUST, where I lecture, the KUST Counseling Center has a lot of peer counselors, and these are students who voluntarily want to get some lay training in counseling, that they can pick early signs of bullying or whatever mental health issues in their colleague. And it is because some some students or some young people feel more comfortable confiding in their colleagues. And then these counselors, these peer counselors have been trained on how to further escalate the issue to a counselor or a senior person. So it will be a good thing to even bring the peer counseling approach even to our secondary school levels, that colleagues or students, classmates, can report some of these issues, first of all, to their classmates before it is even escalated. And then parents should be very mindful of their words in school. You would have to consciously make a conscious effort to take particular attention of subtle changes happening in your child. If they come home and they suddenly are jumpy, they startle to very small or minor noises around them, they are struggling with sleep, they are consistently having nightmares, screaming in their sleep and having night terrors and all that, in a child who previously was not so, and then also declining academic standards. These are very key and early signs of bullying. Sometimes it may show late when the child is already involved in substances of abuse and all that, but the early signs are the changes you should pick in your child. Talk to them when you go to visit them during these visiting Sundays. Don't just be interested in the food you send to them and all that, but quiz them about how things are going and let them know that you can trust them. Some of these children are afraid that if I tell my mother or I tell my father, they are going to report it, they are going to report this senior, and the bullying will now even be worse. They are afraid of the repercussions of reporting. But if the school authorities will set a scapegoat of punishing a senior who has bullied a junior, it will be more easy for the younger ones to report bullying. And eventually, we will be able to stop that culture of bullying in our schools.
I like that you bring in the issue of a scapegoat, because just before I came into the studio, and this was a chit-chat we were having in the newsroom, and we were talking about what kind of signal this whole process will send to people who bully in other senior high schools. So there are those who are of the view that we need to punish this senior, punish him so that people understand that you can't get away with bullying. If he has to go to jail, he has to go to jail. And there are those who say probably he could be a victim of bullying himself, so he may need counseling. But from where you stand as a psychiatrist, how do you think we can send a signal, a very strong one as such, to other bullies in high school, while ensuring that this one who has bullied another person is also not lost to the system and eventually he's reformed?
Yes, the fact that he himself or a bully has been a victim of bullying does not change the fact that the act is wrong. We are gradually becoming a society that gloss over wrongdoing. What is wrong must be punished. It is how the punishment is done that makes the difference, that pushes that child away and makes them worse off than they were before. But if, for instance, you have made this child understand that these are the negative impact or effect of that bullying you did, and you actually list them and how they would even affect he himself as the perpetrator. And because of that, you are going to receive punishment A, B, C, D, so that other people do not follow in your stead. And of course, these punishments, as much as possible, should not affect the academics of the perpetrator as well. Like dismissal is not recommended, because then you get a school dropout who may be fall into substances of abuse, and fall into armed robbery and all that. But ensure that the punishment is such that they will still be in school, it will not affect their fiscal health, and then they will come back to continue their education. And then in addition, the person gets ongoing counseling, both the perpetrator and
Sorry, I have to interject. I know a lot of people would disagree with you on the dismissal bit, but I'll come for us to finish it up. I've just been joined by the head of the Public Relations Unit of the Ghana Education Service, Cassandra Chuman-Pofu. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak to me, ma'am. But let's start off on this note. Does the GES have further information about this incident, when it occurred, how it happened? Do you mind sharing with us briefly, please?
Good morning to you, Benes. Good morning to your viewers and the listeners. With regards to the incident, we know that it happened around 30th June, early July. Okay. We have actually invited them to come. Information we gathered from the head is that when it happened, he quickly took action, and that is what we commended him on in the statement. And then it looks like the students that recorded decided to, post, I think yesterday or 3 days ago, on one of their student platforms, and that's how come it went viral.
Right.
We have invited them anyway. We'll be meeting them in the afternoon, and so whatever details there is would also. But
I'm sorry, just for some clarity, when you say them, do you mean the victim
the
and
school authorities,
okay.
the victim, the culprit? The guys that performed the act, the ones that recorded. Everybody that is involved in this issue. Yeah. Right. So when I say them, that's the people that I'm referring to.
Right. So, this is, and I have just discussed that with Dr. Ruth Usoentri, President of the Psychiatric Association of Ghana, and Dr. Peter Anti, Executive Director of iFirst. And we've been talking about how over the years, bullying has been normalized in our senior high schools. I know that GES has been working in ensuring that these things, I know that when students go to first year, for example, they're taken through the system, they're given advice, they're told this is not right, don't do that. And there are counseling departments that are meant to, deal with the excesses, if there are any, or the deviants, those who do not stick to the rules. How effective has that been in recent times?
Thank you, Bennett, and you are very right. We have our processes in our various schools. We have our full code of conduct. If you are a first year student, when you get to the school, the very first thing that we give to you is the school code of conduct. It's even part of the admission process. We give to you at the early stage. During orientation, they are taking through the do's and don'ts and all of that. Their expectations in the school. They take them through. Occasionally in the school, through the guidance and counseling coordinators, also remind them of the school code of conduct. When it comes to bullying, yes, we know it's been there. And so we keep reminding them that you will not do it. In the school code of conduct, individuals, and now let me quickly say this, that we are almost done with the harmonized or comprehensive code of conduct for all schools.
Okay.
We have the school code of conduct, but it's individual based. So you realize that the sanctions for this particular offense in school A might be different from school B. And so we sat down and said, no, we should have one general code of conduct that will be used in all our schools. We are almost done. I know on Thursday, my Director General will lay before Council, and we will seek Council validation and final approval, and then the schools will use them so that individuals will not be using their own school. But regardless, the individual school code of conduct, again, is against violence, assault, bullying. In the code of conduct, depending on the magnitude, you are suspended, you are given some internal work to do, you are debordernized. In extreme cases, you can even be dismissed. That is when the board and even council, GS Council, has approved. And so we have our processes. In terms of reporting channels, we also do have, right from the prefect to the house masters, house mistresses, to the guidance and counseling coordinators, to the head, we have our reporting channels. But again, we also do acknowledge that sometimes our students, as some might also fear. They feel that, hey, if I should go and report A, this is what would happen to me after. And so they tend to keep to themselves. But we keep encouraging them to come out and let us know. And so for bullying, every now and then the head do drum beat that is not accepted in the school.
Right. We've just received a statement from the Adisado College. Let me just read that, and then I'll come back to you as we wrap up this conversation. We'll also be taking some of your comments as well. And people are reaching out to me wanting to share their own experiences of bullying in high school. Hopefully we'll make time to do that during the interactive segment. But this is relief from position as housemaster. I regret to inform you that you've been relieved from your position as quick housemaster. I hope I got the pronunciation right. With immediate effect, you may be reinstated as housemaster based on the outcome of the investigation. You did not deliver as expected as housemaster as far as this video is concerned, and this is signed by the headmaster. So, ma'am, Cassandra, this is just a statement released by Addis Ababa College asking the housemaster of the house where this occurred to step aside while investigations continue. It's normal practice anyway. But you say you're meeting the school. Do you expect that such actions be taken while you engage them, or you'd rather they hold on and then, you just finish up with your interaction with the school and the police's investigation as well?
Yes, we know the police are taking the matter up as well. In fact, that's expected. We even indicated in our statement. With regard to this housemaster's issue, that hasn't really come up. I am sure it's not a statement. There might have been an internal something.
Memo, sure.
Yes, exactly.
You're right.
And
You're
then,
right.
Yeah, so it's not a statement.
You're right.
I told you that it happened earlier, and then within the school sector, had this video not come out, and it happens. Many a times we do have issues happening in the schools, and that's why they are managers of the school. Once they have the code of conduct, their rules, yes, they have the right to also go through whatever processes, And so this particular one, I do not know the letter. I have not seen it, and I'm very sure that in the afternoon when we meet them, these issues would come up again, specifically with the housemaster. But we, regardless of what has happened, now we have taken the matter up. We stepped in as Management of Ghana Education Service, and so we have asked the regional director to launch a full-scale investigation. Whatever has been done before would again begin the process again, and then get to the roots, and then see how we would curtail these things in our school.
Just for clarity's sake, and let me just read a comment by one of our viewers on Facebook, and he says, this video is not only bullying, it's physical assault. Anything could have happened to that student who had his head smashed against the bed. That bully must be made to pay for his iniquities. His parents should be ashamed for the poor job they've done on him so far. A well-brought-up, cultured, and mannered young man wouldn't do this to another schoolmate. And that's a conversation for another day about upbringing and how it results in student behavior. But his concern is that this student must be made to pay. Cassandra, you are running your own internal investigations. This does not mean that the police will stop theirs, right?
Of course, yes. Yes, we indicated even in the in our press release that we hope that we said management has directed the regional director of education to liaise with the school authorities and the relevant law enforcement agencies to investigate for appropriate action to be taken. And so yes, the police taking over, we are happy, and we will collaborate with them to get to the conclusion of this matter. Because apart from, just as the whoever commented said, it goes beyond bullying, and so definitely whatever charges there is, the police would also do their work. But administratively, as Ghana Education Service, would also not stop. The police can do this, we can also do this administratively.
Right. Now, here's what I like to do. We'd like to get interactive with those who are watching us. So you can call us. It's not time to open the phone lines, but I think I want to do that because of the subject and the concern by parents. So the numbers to call will be on your screen. Just call us and share your thoughts. But while we wait for the calls, Dr. Ruth, so there's a gentleman who's just commented on our Facebook, and he says that this young man must be made to pay because there's a criminal aspect to this. This could have ended up in the death of somebody's child. And let me just say that there's a story currently which is unresolved, a certain school here in Accra, where a young boy who was brought from London, I think, he is a twin, they couldn't find him on a certain day. They realized the boy was dead. According to what we hear, there are allegations that he was bullied and pushed off of the high-rise building. And it's really disturbing for many parents who are taking their children to school and asking the big question, how safe is my child with other people's children? Or what kind of safe space is being created in the school so that children who are even abusive do not have the room to operate? Doc, before I brought in Cassandra, you were saying that dismissal will not be an option because we want to help that young person who is bullied another person get reformed and not end up being worse off than he is now. But there's a criminal aspect to this, right? So how do we handle it? If he has to go to jail, you still have to leave school. He will be dismissed, but that does not mean he won't get education elsewhere.
The criminal aspect, and I will let the police do their job, investigate and do their job. But there is a part GES would have to play, and that is where I probably can come in. Imagine if this young man, the perpetrator, is just dropped out of school. Just think about all the possible things that will happen to him. He ends up on the streets. If we remember some years back, that young military officer, I've forgotten the name, that got lynched. Who knows?
Major Mahama.
Yes, these are people who have been involved in all sorts of bullying all their life. So beating another human being to death, it's not a big deal for them, you know. It's not a problem for them. In fact, it translates to how people beat up criminals to death and all that. There are rules in the country and how you would have to deal with even a criminal. You are not the police officer. You are not the law enforcing agent. And I'm sure that there are rules laid out on how to handle some of these things. But people will rather kill other people. And that is barbaric. You doing the killing, you probably are not better. You're not better than the perpetrator. So all I am saying is that there are several forms of punitive measures that will be meted out. But I am just signing a sign of caution that letting this young man drop out of school should not be one of our options. By all means, he should be punished, but we should not let him end up on the street. He becomes more dangerous, comes after us as adults, other children. He gets even the opportunity to become worse off, join bad group, into substance abuse, or he may even lose his life. So please, yes, he should be punished, but I think that the punishment should not deprive him of his academics. And some of the things that we can do to curb this menace in our school is to reward other students that report actions of bullying around us. Most of the students are very much scared that they themselves will be a focus for bullying when they go to report. But what if in the open, at one school gathering, at an assembly, we're able to name another junior who was the one that actually reported the bullying and give him some medal, give him some cash donation, give him something to reward him? It would also encourage other students to report such bullying. And I'm pleading with GES and the police, whatever is the outcome of this investigation, they should not pull it under the carpet. Most of the time, some of these investigations die naturally. We just hear the police is investigating, GES is investigating, and we never get to know the outcome. It would make parents more confident when we get to see that A, B, C, D measures were meted out to make the school environment safe. A, B, C, D measures were carried out to punish the perpetrator, and A, B, C, D measures are being given to the victim to support him mentally, physically, and all that. That will make parents more confident that it is a safe place to send their wards.
I'm really grateful for your time this morning. Dr. Ruth Owusu-Antwi is president of the Psychiatric Association of Ghana, and she heads the department at Komfanochi Teaching Hospital as well. She's just been helping us get into the mind of somebody who bullies and also look at the victim, the effect. If you missed any part of this conversation, please do well to watch it on our YouTube. It's very insightful, and for you parents and guardians, she also offers some tips on how you can identify if your child is a victim of bullying. So let me just end with you, Madam Cassandra Truman-Poffo. Dr. Ruth had a plea about the investigations and the public being allowed to know what the conclusions are. But your final words on this matter, especially for parents whose wards are still in school as we speak.
Let me comment on what Doc said before she left. I really agree with her on the fact that students that report issues of bullying must also be commended or given some kind of award to encourage them. And then for every one of them to know that bullying is not something that is accepted in the school. And I'm very sure that management will also consider that suggestion as well, because we also need to look at that aspect and then encourage the students. I would finally encourage or assure our stakeholders, our parents specifically, that Ghana Education Service is committed to ensuring that our schools are safe. We have that conducive environment for effective teaching and learning to go on. And so whatever form of bullying, whatever form of assault, whatever form of violence is not accepted, it should be calm. And then we will definitely bring closure to this matter, and we will let all of you know. So they should be assured that their wards are safe with us in the school, and they would have their peace of mind to study.
Thank you very much for your time. Cassandra Chumanpof is PR of the Ghana Education Service, and she's just been sharing details with us. We understand there will be a meeting between school authorities, the perpetrator and victim later today. We will touch base with her and furnish you with details. And we will do well, as the media also, to keep our eyes on this story and let you know what the conclusion of the matter is. I know a lot of you want to comment. I'm seeing your comments here. All right. So Bernard Ampofo is not too happy with what the psychiatrist is saying, but that is her job as a psychiatrist. And don't forget that we want to see the well-being of all children in this matter. And so keep the comments coming through. Hopefully when we are able to open the phone lines, we will get your thoughts on this very, very important subject matter. But I need to take you to Dawenya now. My colleague Carlos Kaloni is there for us. Some of you there are concerned about the traffic situation. It really bothers you. And so Carlos Kaloni is there to assess the situation. Hello, Carlos. What can you report?
All right. So we are live here at the Dawenya to Tema stretch, which is on the N1 highway. Now, for those of you who do not know much about this road actually is at the eastern part of Tema. It actually connects Tema to Aflao, which is about 160 kilometers to Aflao. Now, a portion of the road, which is between the Tema motorway roundabout to Dawenya, or actually Central University in Mutual, has become notorious for traffic situation. And it's a journey that actually can take motorists for about 15 minutes, but they have been telling us that they are spending hours in this particular traffic. Now, in September of 2020, the government actually signed a $100 million contract with a UK-based construction firm, BHM, to actually carry out some expansion work on this particular project. So in October of 2020, President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, actually cut short for the construction work to start on this road. Now, some months on, work on the construction or the expansion work here has actually stalled, and this is actually contributing to gridlock on the stretch. And I have with me some motorists to share with us what they go through on daily basis on this particular road. So kindly give us your name and tell us where you're stationed.
My name is Prince Paul Zoka, a resident of Dawenya.
All right, so you are a driver. Share with us on daily basis, what do you go through on this road?
Yeah, I'm a driver, like you said. The traffic situation on the road is affecting us seriously. For instance, if you move from Dawenya to Bombaria, my office is at Bombaria. So if you move from Dawenya to Bombaria, which needs to take you in about 10 to 15 minutes, because of the traffic situation, sometimes you have to be in the traffic for an hour, 1 hour or two. And seriously, it's affecting us. It's making us to, waste our money. If I said we waste our money because of the fuel that we bought, because of the traffic situation on the road, if you need to use about 1 gallon of petrol to get to your destination because of the traffic situation, you need to use about 2 or more. and seriously it's affecting our business. So at the end of the day, you came home and it's like you have not done anything, because whatever you have got has gone into the fuel, and then because of the situation on the road too, before you get to the office too, you get tired and you cannot do much, and seriously it's affecting us. If you ask me, I would tell you it's affecting our businesses.
All right, so on which specific days do you experience this? Because as we can see, it appears to be flowing a bit. So paint a picture for us.
Yes, for instance, on Mondays is very heavy. Monday, yesterday, for instance, I've been in the traffic for about 2 hours, 10 minutes before I get to Bombaria. So Mondays, and then sometimes to Tuesday. Today I am surprised that it's a little bit free, but honestly from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's very huge. It's very, very huge. And these days too, even on Sunday, could you believe that even on Sunday, there's even a traffic on Sunday. Meanwhile, before, in Sunday, at least you get some free flow. But this day, because of the construction going on the road, Sunday too, it affects us. So, for instance, if you are going to church in Tema, and then you wanted to use about maybe 10 minutes because of Sunday, my brother, if you are not careful, by the time you get to church, the church will even close before you get there.
All right, so you are a taxi driver, and so there are times that you are engaged in emergency situations in terms of maybe carrying pregnant women or people injured and all that. Paint a picture to us. How is it like when you are faced with such situations as a driver on the street?
Seriously, my brother, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. The other day, I had a situation like that, and then at a point, it's like, I don't know what to do. There's a woman in labor, which I need to rush her to Tema General Hospital. And the traffic situation, you can't move. You cannot move. And then also, per our rules, you cannot use a high shoulder. So it means that you need to follow the traffic like that. So at the point, I've become confused. I don't even know what to do. I don't even know. So it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. If you have emergency situation, my brother, you go through hell. You go through, because where are you going to pass? The road is choked. The road is choked. There's nowhere you can pass. So it's very difficult situation for us.
But I understand you have some inner roads that you can connect. What is the state of those roads?
Yes, it's true. There's a lot of inner roads, but seriously, all the inner roads poor. You cannot use it. All the inner roads, there are places, it's not even a pothole. I would say it's a manhole. There are places you cannot even use it, most especially when it rains. So, talking about the inner road, yes, we have an inner road, but seriously, with the nature of the road, you cannot use it. So you'll be compelled to go through the traffic situation. Even though there's a lot of traffic, you are compelled to use the main road because of the nature of the road, the inner road.
All right, so let's look at in 2020, government actually started construction expansion work on this particular stretch. You have been using the road. What can you tell us about the construction situation? Is it still ongoing?
For now, they have stopped. And then they have even moved some of their machines. We don't know where they have sent it to. So if you ask me, as at now that I speak to you, there's no construction going on the road. Either they have stopped or not, I can't speak to that fact. But if you ask me, there's no construction going on. Even their machines are no longer on the road. So I believe maybe they have moved or they have stopped. Perhaps they have stopped. I don't know what the situation might be. But they are no longer working on the road.
All right, so hold on for us. I have another driver here to share with us how this situation is actually affecting their livelihood. So kindly give us your name and tell us what you do. You're a driver?
Yes, please.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Emmanuel Agbenosi Makate, aka Shiny B.
All right, so tell us how this traffic situation on the Dowenya Road is actually affecting the work you do.
In fact, the traffic is affecting us a lot. I'm a resident of Dowenya, but I work at 25 Junction here. Even in the morning, when I wake up early in the morning to get here, like I try to beat the traffic at time 5 o'clock, 5:30, I still meet the traffic around Methodist Junction area there. I'm supposed to be in the traffic inside for a while before I get to here. I'm now coming to work. So by the time you get to your destination where you are coming to start work, you have burned a lot of fuel, and this is affecting us a lot. daily, if we come and maybe someone is going around Dawenya or Pram Pram, you have to go through a hell before you can go to Pram Pram or Dawenya area and come back. And this is affecting us a lot. When they cut the sort for the road, we thought maybe things will go on a little bit better for us. But they have worked at some places, and nowadays the construction have stopped. We don't know what is going on. The machines have been taken off the road. Nothing is going on again. So the traffic there, we've been in traffic from Monday to Sunday. There's every present day there is traffic on the road. There's no single day that we will say the road is free. At times we will get a little bit free, like the way today we are seeing. But every present day we are in traffic. And this is affecting us a lot.
All right, so what would you want the authorities to do about this particular situation?
We would like the authority to do something about the road. The road needs to be constructed so that the drivers around can also feel free and work and get something in their pocket. Because of the road, the traffic situation, we don't work to get money because we always burn our fuels in traffic here and there. So by the close of the day, we don't make anything in our pocket. So we will be happy and very glad if the government will do anything better to continue the construction of the road for us.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. So those are some of the.
That's Carlos Kaloni coming to us from Dawenya, where residents and commuters are concerned about the traffic situation there. I'm sure he'll bring you much more of that later in subsequent bulletins. But, well, it's now time to talk to you about our latest interface on myjoyonline.com. I know that a lot of you have issues with it, and you have been sending your concerns, especially to our WhatsApp console at Joy FM. This morning, we will be sharing with you, explaining how to navigate the particular page, and we would also be explaining how to access that particular page. And I've been joined by the editor of myjoyonline.com. Great to have you here. So please just run us quickly through the new interface and what our audience should know when interacting on the platform.
Bernice, thank you very much, and good morning to viewers. Well, we remember in mid-June, that is 12 June, we set out with this new interface, and we had promised it was coming based on the numbers we're dealing with at Major Online. We reckon that majority of our users are coming from the mobile platforms, and we wanted to optimize that for their free use, easy access. We've rolled out, and we still get some of our readers who think that we should have maintained the old one. Yeah. But we also understand that we have not done enough of communication, telling people where to find what, and that is why we're having this conversation this morning. Yes, so for our desktop users, it's pretty simple. On the left of your browser, you have all the categories that you are previously you are used to. So there's the button at the top there, My Joy Online. That is a home button. The rest of the categories are all down there. When you touch, it takes you into the stories. What has changed then is the drop-down buttons that you are used to over there. But these are now displayed both on the stories and then beneath them. So if you click on, let's say, the news feed, what we have implemented is a scroll. It takes you through all the stories that we have published.
Okay. So it's almost like you're on social media, just scrolling up and seeing all the stories.
And that is to empower them. You know what happened previously? That when you came on the desktop, you have spots where we have hung some of the stories for you to see.
Or even the top stories.
Yes, the top
where
stories.
you go through. You don't have anything like that
And
here.
those, yeah, we do have the top
there's
story.
something like that here.
There is.
Okay.
But what happened previously was that we have chosen what stories you should read.
Okay.
But now we are empowering you to look for what you yourself you read. Sometimes the stories we have chosen to be the best or what you should be reading, you go and then you see that no, people are not even interacting with them. That is not it. people are interested in other stories than what we have offered. So this is what we have done. And particularly for our mobile users, some of the complaints that we have received have to do with where to find what.
Right.
But interestingly, we have provided that. So when you go on your mobile, at the base of it, you have a button that has the menu. Usually it's a red button, depending on what interface you are using. It's a red button at the base of it. That's when you tap, it provides all the categories that you are also looking for. And then once...
So it's almost like a pop-up. It pops up.
It is.
Okay.
It's always there.
Okay.
Yes. And we are saying that, yes, this is a much cleaner, much easier to use than previously. And we're still welcoming feedback. Some of our people want to see less of adverts. We agree with them, but we should also agree that this is a business.
Right.
Of course, we will take their feedback into consideration. Now we provide you more videos. Virtually after every 2 stories, there is a video of... We do a lot at Multimedia, and most of them are coming in as videos and what have you. So readily, when you go on the website, at the top, all the menus are there. We have TV products. Our radio stations are all displayed here.
Yeah, TV, radio, podcast,
videos. All of them are available readily. I mean, at the
and you can also search, right? So if you, for example, if there's a trending story, and you can just put in a keyword.
All you need is a keyword.
Yes.
And that story should pop up for you. And I mean, this is great for us. For now, we think that is the best. What has been lacking so far has been the communication, and we are telling our users, stay with it for a while. Let's see how we all come around it, and it's going to be one of the best rollouts for us in terms of interface. Yes.
But what about those who have the My Joy Line up, but they're not seeing this new interface? Do they have to uninstall and install again?
Yes. Earlier on, we rolled out a push button that told you to reinstall.
Okay.
Because when we did this, we had to go off the old app.
Okay.
So you need to, if you're not seeing the button, please uninstall and reinstall the news app, and you have all these features available on your
Thank you for joining me to do this, and that'll be it for our show today. Editor My Joy Line just running you through our new interface. But until then, it's goodbye. See you again tomorrow. Up next is News Desk with Aisha Ibrahim. Stay safe.